They were lucky to escape with their lives.
Beneath the city, in the dark.
It's almost time. Time for...
Do you know how many people go into these woods every year and never come out alive?
She's nuts. We'll all die if you don't stop. We must leave. We must.
I was having that nightmare again. Something was after me.
This is Hans Manship from House of Death, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
That's right. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode 10. Can you believe we are now in double figures? We've got an awful long way to go before we get up to some of the other podcasts on the web, but we're very pleased to be at double figures, and thank you if you've been following us so far. Again, as I say, this is The Hysteria Continues, episode 10. I'm Justin, the webmaster of Hysteria Lives and the author of Teenage Wasteland, and I'm joined today, as ever, by our slash movie desperados, and I'm sure they will entertain and amaze you with their witty retorts and introductions. And first up is Erik.
Vitamin C is supposed to neutralize the nitrites or something.
Thank you. It's educational as well as bizarre, this show.
It is, because I have lots of nitrites and I don't know what to do with. I don't know how to neutralize them, but now I do.
How do you get nitrates? Are you eating soil or...?
I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, we shall move on to Joseph.
I love you madly, though you treat me badly. There.
Is that, what's that from? Is that Barry Manilow?
That is Dr. Norman Corman from Overboard.
Oh, is that a film?
Kurt Russell film?
Yes.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
You're coming up with all these things I don't know, Joseph, so you're trying to fool me, I think, or trying to make me look like I don't know what I'm talking about. But thank you. But sorry?
I said exactly.
Exactly, you bastard, as somebody from Pieces would say. And Nathan...
I survived the rapture.
You did. We all survived the rapture, so...
Amazing.
Yes. Nathan's the most evil of us all, so that's a surprise.
I know.
But as you know, the end of the world is still due on October the 21st, which means we won't get to Halloween.
It was a bad calculation. He forgot to carry the one, and all that kind of happened. So
that's the way it goes, isn't it? I mean, the rapture would be potentially the greatest kind of slasher movie or Final Destination style slasher movie there would be, wouldn't there? But I guess we'll never know now. So, actually, talking of, sorry, just a slight aside, I actually met John Waters last night, or was it? Yes, last night he did a reading from his new book, and I got to meet him afterwards. But I actually got to ask him a question in the audience, and the question I asked him, he said that the Final Destination films were his favourite ever horror franchise. So I asked him how he would like to die if he's ever in the Final Destination movie. And he told me that he was actually due to be in the fourth one, but it didn't happen. There's scheduling conflicts. But he said what he would really like to do, it would be to spontaneously combust, but only if he's wearing nice shoes. Because he says all those pictures of people in the 70s, or those old ladies that they find lying next to their 3-bar fires have all got fluffy slippers on, and they never wear nice shoes when they die. So he says he'd like to go up in flames, but as long as he's wearing nice shoes. So anyway, that's an aside. I say, just shooting ahead with what we've got this week, our feature presentation is the 1982 dream slasher, The Slayer, which we'll talk about later, and Eric's going to be introducing that. We're also going to be talking about what we've seen, and also our top three this time is top three slasher movie masks. And if you can hear purring, it's not me. It's Gilbert the cat again. He just keeps on breaking in. So if you can hear purring, that's what it is. So shall we move ahead, guys?
I hope it's the cat.
It is the cat.
Will Stripes be making an appearance?
Stripes.
She might.
Okay, we shall look forward to that. We might have stereo purring or something going on. Shall we say what have we been seeing recently, guys? Erik, how about you?
I saw Cold Prey 3 I think you've all seen it at this stage, but I was pleasantly surprised once again by the Coldplay series. I can't stop saying that. Coldplay series. This one is very much in the mould of Wrong Turn, I found. And I'm amazed by how cinematic the films are, because I imagine as a Norwegian film, they're quite low budget. And it looks really good. And I suppose the test of how good it was that, like, as certain characters died, I was like, oh, I didn't want them to die, which is not something you can often say in sort of modern slasher films. Not as good as the first two. I know that. I think we all agree on that, but I still thought it was a fine film indeed.
Absolutely. I mean, were you impressed by the Kim Wilde?
Yeah, I was impressed that somebody was going around listening to Kim Wilde's cover version of "You Keep Me Hanging On" whilst wearing a Smiths t-shirt. Absolutely. It was kind of strange. I don't think Smiths fans and Kim Wilde fans ever merged. Or am I wrong?
Well, maybe in Norway they did. It may be what happened. Of course,
I did purchase Mel and Kim's debut album whilst wearing a Jesus and Mary chain T-shirt in 1987.
That is very wrong, isn't it?
That is very wrong indeed. I was confused.
Did you get some strange looks from the people selling it to you?
I cannot recall now.
I imagine you probably did. And in case anyone, if you haven't seen Coldplay, and of course, talking of Coldplay, I mean, who wouldn't like to see a film where members of Coldplay were stalked and killed, and it appeared to be Gwyneth Paltrow at the end, who then, in the final twist, was killed by someone else. I'm sure. As somebody I know, I actually don't really hate Gwyneth Paltrow, and she's a bit of a twat, obviously, but who says his favourite Gwyneth Paltrow movie is her when she's Header in the Box in Seven. He really, really hates her. So, but anyway, going back to Coldplay 3 is obviously set in the 80s. It's a nice throwback to 80s slashers. So how about anything else, Erik? Have you been watching?
Well, I've seen some retro things. I mean, we've mentioned it a few times in the last few podcasts, is Alice, Sweet Alice. I finally rewatched that for the first time in 10 years and thought it was fantastic. And I was really surprised when I was looking up on the internet that the lead actress in it was 19 when she filmed it. And she's playing a 12-year-old, and she's playing a 12-year-old very convincingly. She could actually pass for probably 8 or 9.
Yeah, she's very good, isn't it? She didn't go.
Unbelievable that she's 19. I couldn't believe it.
She didn't actually go on too much, did she? Afterwards, I don't think.
No. Yeah. I also saw. It's not a slasher, but it's made by the same team who gave us The Dawn That Dripped Blood, and that was The Kindred, which was a film I really liked in the late 80s, but I haven't seen in 25 years or so, and rewatched it again the other week, and it still holds up. I really enjoyed it. A good monster movie.
I like The Kindred. I haven't seen it since about 88 or 89, but I remember quite liking it. So
I'm also, one other thing. I'm also reading Kim Newman's Nightmare Movies. Kim Newman being a sort of high-profile British genre journalist. And I'm quite enjoying it. I mean, he hates a lot of horror films, surprisingly. I mean, he even slags off Alien, which would be one of my favourites, and I thought would be kind of critic-proof. And he also slags off Toya on page 188. So this book's going straight in the bin.
Good man, eh?
Into the bin with it.
I'm reading that book, or I've had a quick flick, as it were, with that book. But I was surprised actually how much Kim Newman, as opposed to Kim Wilde, hates slasher movies, and of course
he seems to hate all horror films by the sound of him. I mean, I still like him, and I think he's a very intelligent critic of the horror genre. But slagging off Toya was a step too far for me. I could handle him slagging off Alien, but
I can imagine. He's a canny critic when it comes to that kind of thing, but obviously with slasher movies, I think he's slightly off the ball. But of course, what he's done with Nightmare Movies, which is a seminal tome on horror movies, I mean, it's always been very well regarded. I think it's released originally in the late 80s. And this is like an updated version, taking it right through to the modern day. But I presumed what he would do is go back and revisit all of the films he talked about originally. And I think it's basically called what it is it's talking about horror films from the 1960s onwards. So it's kind of like the modern era in a wider sense. But it doesn't appear to, with the slasher movies, it seems to be very much dated back to when he wrote it originally. It doesn't seem to have been updated at all. I might be wrong, but certainly there's lots of stuff about violence against women and things like that, which, although obviously it's still potentially an issue, it's something that was a hot potato back in the early mid-80s. And incidentally, if you can hear, it's not someone revving a chainsaw outside. I think someone's trimming a bush. or something sort of nearby. So that's my excuse. So it's a cat purring and someone with a chainsaw somewhere nearby. So if you hear me go off air, then you know something horrible has happened in a slasher movie style. So
it's not Paul Smith from Pieces, is it?
I can't see anyone. I'm looking out there, and I can't see them, but it could well be. That would be slightly ironic, wouldn't it? But, anything else to feedback on, Erik?
No, I've seen lots of older films I've been catching up on, but that's all slasher wise.
Okay, cool. How about you, Joseph? What have you been seeing recently?
Well, I haven't seen.
Can hear a bell.
Yeah, there's a bell going off. Anyway, I haven't seen Cold Prey 3 yet, but I did watch Cold Prey 2 to play kind of catch up. And I thought the first film was only so-so, but the sequel kind of takes all the good stuff from the first film and all the good stuff from Halloween 2 and kind of creates like this melange. It's an effective slasher set in a hospital, and it features at least one great gimmick in that there are two stories that kind of run parallel with one another, and they intersect, and it kind of gives us like two heroine characters instead of one. It's pretty suspenseful in places, and I think it really utilizes the hospital setting to its full effect. I did have a few issues with some of the pacing, but a minor quibble. I'd give it a 7 out of 10 to be sure.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, it's what Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 should have been, basically, isn't it? If you're going to remake Halloween 2, then... Well,
Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 was probably a little better, but,
Really?
No.
Controversial.
Controversial. Yes, well, not that controversial, because I think everyone knows... No. Well, anything else? And taking your fancy?
I watched some Saved by the Bell reruns.
Ooh.
Very, very, very entertaining. That's it. That's all I've seen.
Any slasher references in that?
Actually, yes. There is one episode where they go to a mansion, and it's a murder mystery weekend, and someone is killing off the guests one by one.
Oh, really?
It's called Murder Mystery Weekend. So there.
Excellent. In a kind of April Fool's Day style, or?
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of, okay. Excellent. Well, what we'll do, I won't come to you next, Nathan, just because I know Nathan, because obviously if you've been following the podcast, you'll know that Nathan joined us. I think it was on episode 3, was it, Nathan, you first came aboard?
Yeah, I think it was 3.
3, yeah. So we did our top 4 or 5 what the fuck moments, and so Nathan's going to incorporate that when he talks about some of the films he said, which will take us nicely into our top 3. So what I'll do is I'll just catch up on what I've been watching. I've been on a bit of a giallo kick at the moment. I watched 7 Deaths in a Cat's Eye, which was inspired. I saw the completely unslasher related Gainsbourg biopic, which is the French biopic of the famous French singer Serge Gainsbourg, and it was kind of which was great, but inspired me to watch Seven Deaths in the Cat's Eye, because it's one of the most wacky giallos, which is set in a Scottish castle in about 1920, and it's got Jane Birkin, who was famously the lover of Serge Gainsbourg, playing a kind of an innocent while lots of people are being killed, and the gimmick is every time someone dies, is murdered, the cat is there watching. But what is really hilarious about it, and obviously you think they must have had a bit of a tongue in cheek, as it were, is there is a gorilla hanging around in the castle. It's peeking through the curtains, which they hilariously call an orangutan for some bizarre reason. But also Serge Gainsbourg turns up as a Scottish detective with a really heavy brogue, and then so it's just bizarre all around. So if you like your giallo very wacky, then I would recommend that. Another one I've seen, which is a new film, which I'd really, really recommend, and it's not a slash movie in the purest sense. It's got more to do with the torture porn sub-genre, but it's way above most of that, and it's an Australian film called The Loved Ones. and it's just a really, really good, quirky film. And essentially, without giving too much away, what happens is a kind of misfit teenage girl asks out the school hunk to prom, and he turns her down in a very nice way. But she doesn't like being turned down, so what she does is gets her father to kidnap him, take him back to their remote house down the middle of the Australian outback, and basically torture him while they pretend to have a prom. And then it veers into very tried and tested slasher movie-esque theatrics towards the end. But it's very twisted, it's very funny, and it's beautifully shot. So it's definitely worth checking out. That's a recommendation. And lastly, I rewatched the film Hellbent, which is one of the only gay-themed slashers. I think it's from about 2004, 2005. There was Make-A-Wish, which was the lesbian-themed slasher, but Hellbent is actually I really like it. It's not massive budget, but it's really well put together. It doesn't matter if you're gay or not, because you can still watch this, and it's got all the all the slasher movie thrills that you would expect. And essentially it's four friends at the Hollywood Halloween Carnival celebrations being stalked by a man in a devil mask with a sickle hand scythe. And I really like it. It's a really, really good fun film. So that's another recommendation for me if you've not seen it. I think that's everything from me. So Nathan, how about you?
Well, I saw Cold Prey 3, and I agree with Erik. I think it was really good. Not as good as the first two, but still worth a watch. And let's see, I watched House by the Cemetery again Friday night, and I really like that movie a lot. I actually think it's one of Fulci's better films, and I'm a Fulci fan, but I really enjoy House by the Cemetery. That movie used to scare the hell out of me when I was a little kid, so I think I also have a lot of nostalgia when I rewatched it, because there's some he kills people in very brutal ways, and the gore scenes in Fulci are really good.
I mean, out of all of his films, all of those kind of dead, the zombie films, The House by Cemetery is the most kind of slasherific, isn't it? Especially the opening scenes.
Yeah, because he actually doesn't eat the people. I mean, he's killing them with knives and pokers and dismembering them.
Yeah, no, it's a great film. Yeah. Great film.
And if Joe's going to mention Saved by the Bell, I've watched a lot of Married with Children recently, and I watched the one episode where the family all take a vacation to Dumpwater, Florida, and they stay at the hotel called Poppy's by the Tree, where there's an axe murderer stalking the guests, and that's a very slasherist episode.
Excellent. Okay. I mean, it'd be a fun thing to do, actually, wouldn't it? To go through and list all of those long-running TV shows that have done sort of slasher movie parodies or nods to slasher movies, because I'm sure there must be loads of them. And I imagine Amanda by Night, who posts on the forum, who's in obviously is a treasure trove of information about an American TV shows and films and writes for the fantastic site Retro Slashers as well. I mean, I'm sure she would be able to put something together on that with absolute ease, and I'm sure it'd be absolutely fascinating.
Can I just plug? Sorry, I was just going to plug Amanda by Night's blog. She has a blog called Made for TV Mayhem, which would specialise in not just sort of slasher-related TV mayhem, but any kind of retro TV stuff from the 70s and 80s. Made for TV Mayhem. If you Google that, you'll find it.
Let me just jump in here and mention that I watched Saved by the Bell ironically. I don't get any enjoyment out of it.
Are you sure, Joseph?
Do you fancy... What's her name? Tiffany Amber Thiessen's in that, isn't she?
I don't like her.
Do you not?
She, I like the Brainiac, the one that was in Showgirls.
Oh yes, what was her name?
Jessie.
Sorry,
Jessie.
Her name was Jessie on the show.
Her name's Elizabeth Berkley in real life.
Yeah, that's right.
Showgirls is a wonderful piece of art, and they've got Susie on the soundtrack as well.
I love it.
Who's on the soundtrack?
Susie.
Is she?
Yes, the closing song is the Banshee song. Sorry,
No wonder the film was
Well, as you know, Kim Newman doesn't slag off Toya in his book, so doesn't slag off Susie in the book.
Yeah.
So
Susie's actually the film he's slagging her off about is Jubilee, and Susie's in that film as well.
Exactly, doing a much better job than Toy Zandram. But anyway. So, Nathan, actually, before we come back to you, Nathan, just before I forget, just wanted to say, talking about blogs and other podcasts is one of my favourite podcasts is Outside the Cinema, and just want to give a shout out to Bill and Chris, who read out my email, which was a shameless plug for this show. And so if you're coming to this show via Outside Cinema, welcome to you. And if you're listening to the show and you don't listen to Outside Cinema, then please do, because that's a fantastic show. It's my favourite podcast out there, and it's actually probably the inspiration for starting this, as I put in my email. Anyway, sorry, Nathan. Go back to what else do you want to tell us about?
Well, that's about all I've seen recently. I watched Shriek of the Mutilated, which I think is cheesy fun, but that's kind of on the line whether it's a slasher or not.
It's quite a fun. That was one of the films way back in the early 80s. I saw on video in a catalogue. We used to get catalogues from the video rental places, and I remember that the cover, which showed the Bigfoot or the white Yeti coming around the stairs with the big claws, and I just remember thinking how scary that looked. And then, of course, I saw the film, and it's pretty funny. But it's got some slasherific moments in it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Did you want to tell us about your what the fuck moment? Because I think it's going to be really interesting to find out which things have freaked you out.
Okay, let's see. Well, the one I was thinking about recently is from Straight Jacket, a.k.a. Dark Sanity. The movie about the blonde woman who has visions when she moves into this house. And at the end, when she's fighting with the killer does this weird thing where she just kind of turns around in circles and falls out the window. And I always thought that was the weirdest thing when I watched that scene.
You're not going to get my Henry, not Lucy Duncan, and not you.
Isn't the killer about 4 foot tall as well?
Yeah.
In a fedora.
She's so tiny. I mean, I would think this woman could easily push her out the window, but she don't have to, because the woman just swings in a circle and falls out the window on her own. So the heroine didn't have to do much, actually. She just sit back and watch the killer act like an idiot in the living room.
Well, the actress was it Corey Clark or something in Straight Jacket probably wasn't able to act anyway, react to anything horrible happening, which is probably why they decided just to do that slightly bizarre thing. But that is a very bizarre film anyway, isn't it?
Hasn't it just been released on DVD in the States?
Has it?
I think so, has it? Or am I mistaken?
I don't know.
I think it may.
Okay, well, that would be interesting. I mean, I'd like to see a decent version of it, but I can't imagine, there's that old saying is that you can't polish a turd, and that film is a turd, but at least it's quite an enjoyable turd, if that makes sense. But anyway, so is there anything else you want to say about that, Nathan?
No.
No, okay. The less said, the better. Okay. Is anything else, guys, you want to say? Anything that comes back to you that you've seen recently before we move on top 3? I shall move on top 3 then. Okay, well, as you know, if you're a regular listener to the show, you know that we shamelessly stolen from other shows, including Outside Cinema, where they do their top 6s, but there's 2 of them, so we do our top 3s. And this week, we thought what would be quite fun is to look back at the films, some of the classic films, and look back at the masks and what would a slasher movie be without a masked villain. And of course, there have been lots of slasher movies without masked villains, but the best ones, I think, always have that faceless mask. Or not necessarily faceless, but obviously the purpose of the mask is to hide the identity of the killer. And throughout the 80s, there were, they were looking for different ways to kill teenagers. They were also looking for interesting visual ways to hide the identity of the killer, or just to give them a kind of identity in the first place. And so the slasher movie mask is the way they did that. So what we're going to do is do our top 3 slasher movie masks. So starting off with number 3, do you want to get first, Erik?
Okay, my number 3 is the old hag mask from Curtains, which we were discussing quite recently. And on the face of it, it's quite a ridiculous-looking mask, and I think in any other film it would be laughable, but I think they use it quite effectively in Curtains, specifically the famous scene on the frozen pond. It's quite eerie. It's very unusual. I'll give it that much, because most of the masks that are worn in slasher movies don't have characteristics, if you know what I mean. They're usually sort of like hockey masks, or they're sort of vague. But this one is obviously sort of an old witch mask or something. They're very effective. I don't know what you guys think of it. I mean, I can imagine it being, if it had been used in something like Friday the 13th, I don't think it would have worked.
No, I think because it was obviously the killer. Well, I mean, it's fairly obvious that it's kind of the whole story is about a group of actresses together, and one of them is going to be the killer. I mean, it's fairly obvious from the setup. So the fact is that the mask is of a woman, but is of an old sort of hag, basically, and I think that's kind of makes it quite different and interesting compared to sort of other things. And of course, there's another film which came out before that, and I do wonder if they were inspired by that, which is Pete Walker's The Comeback.
Oh yes,
which has a slasher movie mask, which is an old hag.
I've forgotten about that one, yeah.
But that's that, and also I suppose there's Terror Train as well, isn't there? Which I don't want to. Sorry, so I might at risk of spoiling some other people's choices, but that had a kind of. It wasn't a hag mask. I almost said slag mask, but that wasn't maybe right. But a hag mask.
What?
But,
it was Madonna.
Madonna. Maybe it's Toya. No. Anyway, let's.
Sorry.
She's many things, but she's not a slag. She's been happily married for 25 years to Robert Fripp from King Crimson.
Yes, so she says. I'm sure she has. Doesn't mean she hasn't worn a mask in her time, or maybe she should. So anyway, okay. Well, thank you, Erik. So Joseph, what's your number 3?
Okay, first of all, kudos to Girls Night Out for doing the serrated knives for fingers gagged before Freddy took it mainstream. But even bigger kudos to the killer's costume, which is the bear mascot, which is equal parts ridiculous and jarring at the same time. I don't know, there's really something unnerving about a killer in a Yogi Bear outfit hissing obscenities while carving up nubile college co-eds. It's got these big yellow eyes, and it's got this kind of a shit-eating grin, and it's all button-nosed, and then it's basically running around like hacking people to death. It's really creepy, I think.
I mean, it's one of those films. I kind of watched the trailer for it recently. I'm sort of putting together some slasher movie trailers, just sort of for fun, basically. Just trying to put a DVD together just for a party, and I thought it'd just be quite fun to do that. And I was watching that trailer, which has got that really bizarre one. If you've seen it, it's got the girl in bed smoking, going, "I really like to be scared," and then she said, "But weird things are happening." And then it's got the kind of it kind of does all the kind of lots of scenes from the film. But it is that aka the Scaremaker, but it's one of those really weird films where it's very cheesy, but it's also really sleazy and quite sort of unpleasant, isn't it? Because the killer is always sort of hissing slut, whore, and things like that, and so that's really incongruous with the kind of the bear mascot. And as you say, it is just like the Slayer, and we'll talk about that later. Sort of prefigures Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street. So that's a good choice, Joseph.
Yeah, I like bears in movies, I have to say.
I wonder why. Yes.
It's so childlike and comical, and then it's walking around, running around killing people. It's really, really unnerving, I think.
Well, I kind of guess it's like a teddy bear is kind of,
like a big teddy bear.
Which has been done. I'm sure some of the Charles Band films have done killer teddy bears. Maybe it's in Dolls or something like that. But I mean, that all obviously came afterwards. So it's I think it's a very effective disguise, and obviously the classic one where you've actually got the excuse to be walking around college in a costume, haven't you? Because it was the mascot for the football team or whatever it was. So
the basketball team.
Basketball team, that's right. And so it's the perfect way for the killer to go around doing what they do, which is that's a good choice. Have I? Sorry, to make sure I don't lose track. Nathan, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is the Jester mask from Slaughter High. I really like that mask a lot. I love the scene where the one girl's being burned in the acid bath, and you see the Jester standing outside the door, and you see the shadow as he watches her burn. And I don't know, I just think that seeing him wandering the hallways with that weird, freaky mask with the little bells on it, and you can hear the bells off in the distance sometimes, I think it's a really good mask.
What about you guys? What did you think of Jester Mask?
Yeah, it reminds me, I hope this doesn't spoil anyone's, the Jester Mask in House on Sorority Row as well is very effective.
No!
Oh, God, I knew it. Edit.
There's no going back. Yeah. Just name dropping shamelessly, which I think I've already done this, but it's Josephine Scandi, who's the girl in the acid bath, and I interviewed her they're going to be on the liner notes for new Slaughter High DVD, and she's invited me to go over to Rome and stay with her at some point. So as long as she doesn't run me an acid bath, then we should be all right, hopefully. But I really like The Mask. I think it's in a terminally cheesy movie. It's a fun movie, but that Jester Mask is pretty freaky. And one of my favourite ever slasher movie artworks for VHS was the UK release, which shows the mask with Marty, Simon Scudamore, peeking out like a painting from behind the mask, and it's great. And I love in the film where Marty jumps out into shot, and that little jingle, again, it's got that whole weird juxtaposition of childlike fun clown, sort of jester, and horror. So yeah, excellent. Thank you, Nathan. Let's go on to my number 3. Basically, I think everyone kind of chose some of the best ones, so this one's slightly off the wall. My number 3 is the motorcycle helmet from Night School, aka it was released in this country as Terrorize, which is the Rachel Ward starring Boston set slasher movie where the killer's disguised in black leather wearing a motorcycle helmet. And there's something about motorcycle helmets where you can't see the person's face at all, because what it is, it's not like a jester's mask or anything that's kind of characteristic. It's literally anyone who rides a motorcycle has a motorcycle helmet on, or they should do. And once the visor's down, it just completely removes, any features, anything. And also, of course, the other thing is you've got the glass or the reflective front, which means in a kind of peeping Tom type way. Although I don't think it actually did it in Night School. It's a shame. I haven't seen it for a while, but it would have been good if it had. That the victims would have actually seen themselves in the killer's visor. The other film that has this is the Giallo, the very, very sleazy but very enjoyable late Edwidge Fenech Giallo, which is Strip Nude for Your Killer. And that has a killer in a motorcycle helmet. That's my number 3.
Nail Gun Massacre has it,
and
as
of course, Nail Gun Massacre. How could I forget?
Don't you ever forget that?
How could I forget?
Doesn't Welcome to Nightmare Beach have a
yes, it does actually.
Killer?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's something that's been used relatively regularly, but I like it, especially in Night School, which I'm so on. It's not my favourite film. It's by the director of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang of all things. But my understanding, I think Night School was actually due for a release through whoever owns the rights, if it's Warner Brothers or one of the people that's been putting out archive releases onto DVD. I think that one is due for an archive release, which, am I right in thinking, because I haven't ever got any of these, but essentially you write off and put in an order, and then they burn them off per
I think
basis?
it's on demand or something. I haven't got one either myself, but I've been keeping my eyes on it,
Because it's a shame, because I'd love to... When I was in Boston last year, I was looking at the locations, because I thought it'd be fun to try and find them. I didn't find any, but luckily I wasn't stalked by anyone wearing a motorcycle helmet either. So anyway, without further ado, you know what's coming next.
We do. Say it, Justin. Say it.
Oh, okay. And it's time for the big number 2. So who went first last time?
That wasn't me.
That was not me either.
I think
It had to be the
that
worst, Joseph.
Yes. So who went first? Was
Sorry.
it you,
Me.
Eric?
It was me.
Okay. If
My
you
number
want-
two
if you
is
want to
The
unload on
Prowler.
us.
Joseph
Sorry.
Zito's The Prowler, a.k.a.
Okay.
Rosemary's Killer.
Yes.
And it's the old military fatigues uniform, complete with various places to put knives and bayonets. And I don't know where he keeps his pitchfork. Does he put that into a back rucksacky type thing or something? I'm not sure, but I think it's a great look. I mean, it reminds me of, I better not say, it reminds me of another film that I'm sure is probably going to come up soon from this same year. But it's a very sinister look to it. The silent killer dressed all in military uniform, complete with a mask covering his face. Very good.
It's a really scary image, especially on the poster, isn't it? Of the poster where he's got he's holding, is it Cindy Weintraub, who was
Girl in the swimming pool, yeah.
who's in Humanoids from the Deep, which I watched recently. But when you basically you just see his helmet as on his head, and you can see it's just kind of almost like it's kind of like almost like moss or something, not moss, but netting over his face. And I think it's quite it's a very scary image. I've been dying to get hold of the UK quad for that, which came out as Rosemary's Killer.
Yeah.
And it's so expensive, I can't get it. But I did get a Belgian poster, which has got it's got that image on it, which is really, really nice. So I'm
What's it called in Belgium?
I think it's Rosemary's Killer, but in Flemish or whatever.
Flemish,
yeah. But I'm basically setting up to go on holiday this year, so I can't afford to get lots of my posters put into frames yet. But no, I agree. It's a great image. How about you guys, Eric and Nathan and Joseph? What is it? Something you like?
Oh yeah, I like it a lot.
I like it.
Yeah,
and it does remind me of. I know what Eric's talking about.
A certain film, yeah.
Yeah, the whole movie. Both movies are very similar. So the masks, it would stand to reason that the masks are rather similar as well.
Okay, yeah, excellent. Okay, well, good choice. I mean, I think we're, they're so iconic, the masks, aren't they? I mean, I think it's kind of, we know them so well, as it were. As who's sung "We Know Them So Well"?
Elaine Page and Barbara Dixon.
I don't know where that came from, so I do forgive me. But okay, moving on to your number two, Joseph.
My number two is The Cherub from Valentine. Valentine's a movie that I hated when I first saw it, but it's kind of grown on me. But the killer's cherub mask is probably the one thing from the film that kind of stuck with me after all these years. There's a really good gag here where after each killing, the killer's nose bleeds, and he's basically reaching catharsis. The blood trickles out through his nose, and then it goes through the hole of the cherub mask, and it gives the mask the actual appearance of having a nosebleed. And they did this gimmick to similar effect in Alone in the Dark years earlier.
Yeah.
But here it's just as effective, and especially when it's coupled with that mask. The killer also has like a Michael Myers kind of vibe. He's like real stealthy and emotionless. It's a really effective mask. It's Cupid, which brings love, but in this movie, it's bringing death.
No, I think it's a great mask. I mean, it's a film. I think I might have mentioned this before on the podcast, but it's probably Valentine was like the final death knell, wasn't it, of the kind of post-Scream slashers? Because I think it was the one that just bombed in a really big way, which
is kind of weird because Valentine doesn't go for the whole postmodern humor. It's basically just out and out slasher movie thrills, stab, slash, hack. People getting killed. There's no wink or jokes or anything. And I think when I first saw the film, that kind of threw me. But now that I look back on it, I'm actually more appreciative of it now, as it being just more of a throwback to the earlier slashers from the 80s and the 70s.
Because I'd like to see it again. I haven't seen it possibly since it came out in cinema, but I do remember also, didn't it get cut quite heavily? A lot of violence cut out, and it's never been seen. A bit like Cherry Falls, that other kind of film from around the same time that was. There
were interviews with Jamie Blanks, who directed the film. I believe he said that the gore quotient was significantly higher than what we saw on screen, and to this day they haven't released any of that footage, but I think that would be really good to see that.
Well, absolutely.
But no, that's my number two. The cherub mask, I think, is really, really creepy.
Excellent. How about you guys, Eric and Nathan?
I'd agree. I mean, Valentine would be one of my lesser favourite films from the era. I mean, I still think it's quite good, but The Mask is definitely striking.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. I almost picked it, but it didn't quite make the cut.
All right. Okay. Well, what did make your cut for your number 2?
Oh, my number 2 is the Santa outfit from To All a Good Night. There's something about that Santa mask is really scary to me. And there's like, I guess it's also the fact that a lot of people complain about To All a Good Night's too dark. But seeing that Santa suit in the dark and you can barely make out, the mask and everything, it makes it even scarier to me. And there's, there will be scenes where the Santa Claus is standing next to a tree and the only thing like lighting up the mask is the Christmas lights. And I just think that that's a very scary costume, because like Joseph was saying with Valentine, it's like Cupid, who's supposed to be the bringer of love, bringing death. Santa is supposed to be this happy, guy who brings joy to people, and this Santa is bringing death. Is like hacking up all these sorority girls and their boyfriends over the Christmas holidays.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll get to, when we get to Christmas, it's kind of probably a film that'd be quite good to do, wouldn't it? Because I haven't seen it. It's actually one of the films I got the original tape, like a pre-cert tape, really old tape, and it's just completely mangled up. It won't play anymore. So it's a film I'd really like to see get a DVD release, and it's I don't know what they were smoking when they made it, but it's certainly an interesting thing, and obviously not the only slasher Santa. So I think it'd be great to do a show at some point dedicated to Santa slashers. How about you guys, Joseph and Erik?
I haven't seen To All a Good Night. I don't think does it have an alternate name? It's not Christmas Evil, is it?
No.
No, I don't think I've seen that one, but I don't find the Christmas slashers terribly interesting, I'm afraid to say.
Oh, really? Okay, well that's interesting in itself.
I like To All a Good Night, but I think the movie's a little dark. It's hard to make out what's going on, and saying that, it's hard to see the killer's mask, I think. I mean, maybe the copy I had was darker than others, but yeah, it's pretty creepy. And I guess it's a good number 2, obviously, but no, it's pretty creepy.
Yes.
But
I
wish they'd release a proper DVD where you could actually see the full effect of the mask in question.
I think I agree, and also Erik, I think you would actually get a kick out of this movie because it is very spectacularly cheesy in a lot of ways. It's also quite disturbing, also quite cheesy. Is it this film where they find the severed head of that girl in the shower, and the guy turns around and starts going boop, boop, and like trying to throw up? That's the one, isn't it? Yeah. So I think
it's got a huge body count.
And they've got a really weird.
Directed by David Hess, I see.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And it's who went on to star in Body Count as well, didn't he, with Mimsy Farmer, which was again a strange career move. But I don't want to give away the ending, Erik, if you've not seen it, because it'd be quite interesting actually for us to do a film that you've not seen, Erik, so you can come into it rather than us seeing a film that we've seen many years ago. But I think you'd probably get quite a kick out of this because it is. All the Santa slashers are pretty cheesy, let's face it. But To All a Good Night is really out there in a lot of ways, and I think you'd get a kick out of some of the more bizarre aspects to it. So excellent.
Well, seek it out.
Seek it out, definitely. If I move on to my big number 2, and that is I need to. I know I need some sound sound things here, don't I? But
too much X-Lax this morning.
You've been hanging out with Grant too much. Is what your problem is.
I had a high fiber breakfast this morning.
Please just break it down. We're trying to bring the nature of this show up into slightly more intellectual, and you're dragging it down anyway. But coming on to my big number 2 is. What we probably were talking about when we were talking about The Prowler, I imagine you were alluding to My Bloody Valentine, the original and the remake, I guess, which has the gas mask, which I think is one of my favourite masks from slash movies. Again, it's one of those things that you could have a whole mine, I can guess, for the people wearing gas masks. They probably don't wear them now. I don't know. I'm not a miner. I've never been down a mine. But the gas mask, again, has the added benefit of the heavy breathing, because obviously it's artificial breathing to some degree. So you have this kind of which is kind of, did you like that?
Sexy.
Sexy, I know. But you've got that heavy breathing thing, which is obviously was utilised in Halloween and pretty much all post Halloween slashers, and also quite a lot of slashers and proto slashers before Halloween. But I love the gas mask. And one of my favourite ever scenes in a slasher movie, out of all slasher movies, has to be the killer in the gas mask with the pickaxe, walking down the mine, smashing the lights as he goes, and then tumbling the mine shaft or into darkness, the tunnels into darkness one by one. And so I always remember finding that spectacularly creepy. And it's also those two big holes for eyes, almost like the glass, where it's kind of like an abyss behind. You've got no idea who's behind that mask. And so, yeah, that's my sort of big number 2. How about you guys? Would you agree that's a good choice?
Yeah, completely, 100%.
I think it is, but considering we're going to be covering the film in a few weeks, I'm not going to say too much except that...
fair enough.
I like what you said about the eyes, where they're real glassy and they're dark, and you can't really see who's behind it, and all you can hear is the whole time. I really like that.
I think I'd do that better, but yeah, I agree. Okay.
That's not what he said.
Ooh. Okay, anyway. Nathan, what do you want to give us your quick thoughts on that, or do you want to save your thoughts for the My Bloody Valentine podcast, which is upcoming very shortly?
I'll just say that I think it was a really good choice.
Thank you. Okay, excellent. Well, can't go too wrong with that. And so we're moving into pole position, as it were. So, Erik, what's your number 1?
Well, my number 1 is very obvious, and it's Halloween. It's the shape mask, the William Shatner spray-painted white mask. Specifically, the mask from the first 2 films. The mask in Halloween 2 is quite different to the one in Halloween 1. In Halloween 1, the eyes are completely black, so you can't see his eyes as such. So he's more of an emotionless void, the same way as you were saying about the mask in My Bloody Valentine. And I know some people have a problem with Halloween 2 because in certain scenes you can see his eyes, behind the mask, which sort of takes away from the mystique a bit. But I think it's still an excellent looking mask. My problem comes when they reach Halloween 4 and onwards. In Halloween 4, the mask has no neck. It looks like Bob Hoskins. In Halloween 5, it looks like Barry Manilow. In H2O, they use about 3 or 4 different masks throughout the film that change. The hair color even changes at one stage. But in the first 2, I think it's really eerie, really mysterious. My only thing I question, and I've questioned this for so long, is why would somebody be selling that mask? Because it's a nothing mask, if you know what I mean. Why would it be on sale in the shop? That's because Michael Myers steals it from a shop. But why would they be selling
William
it?
William Shatner's trying to make an extra few dollars off of his appearance.
But are they selling it as a William Shatner mask, or is it just a mask that you can buy for Halloween?
Well, I've got a theory, because obviously Michael Myers was in Smith's Grove Sanitarium for a long time. He was probably doing lots of crafts while he was in there. So I've got a theory that he actually stole a William Shatner mask and then spent half an hour customising it before he went on a killing spree.
But you see, they say that Sheriff Brackett says that they broke into the store and stole some rope and some knives and a Halloween mask. Okay. So obviously, we'd assume the mask was stolen from the shop.
Yes,
but maybe it was a William Shatner mask, and whilst he was in Haddonfield, he sort of chopped it up a bit, spray painted it, and put it on.
He's a very talented fellow.
But then in Halloween 2, Ben Tramer has the same mask.
That's true. Okay, well, it's an alternative Halloween.
It is. It's an unusual Halloween mask to have in a shop.
Yes.
Not now, obviously, because Halloween is so famous, but Michael Myers?
Well, do you
why
think...
should you go for that mask?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think, I'm sure you guys know the story that John Carpenter said to Tommy, what's his name, the guy...
Lee Wallace. Yeah.
Tommy Lee Wallace, was it? No, was it? Yeah. Tommy Lee Wallace, that's it. To go out and get a mask and bring back several different ones so they could look at it. And it was a toss-up between this mask and a clown mask. And they decided to go with what we know now today is Michael Myers' mask. But would Halloween have been so successful if Michael Myers had been wearing a clown mask? Or would it have potentially been even creepier? What do you think?
I don't think it would have been creepier. No.
I actually wish he would have wore like a. I wish he would have wore like a George Takei mask or a Scotty, like Scotty or one of the other Star Trek people.
And a bra and knickers.
Yeah.
No.
Or the black lady, Uhura.
Oh yes. But it could have been any of those, couldn't it?
Yeah. But what are your guys' opinions on the masks in the sequels outside of Halloween 1 and 2?
I'm not being honest to say I've never noticed, but I guess I haven't paid enough attention.
Yeah, same with me. I mean, I noticed a little difference, but I wasn't like fanatic about it like a lot of these Halloween fanboys are. You know, you have like go on like news groups or like message boards and like, I hate the mask in this movie. I like it better in this movie. And I'm thinking, you know, maybe the style.
Well, I don't go to the extent of complaining about it on the internet.
No, I mean, there's some.
But I noticed a huge like when Halloween 4 came out. I noticed a huge difference in the mask. I think it lost a lot of its edge.
I mean, I think I agree with Erik. Actually, I mean, for me, it's very distracting. I mean, it doesn't spoil the movies. I mean, some of them can't really be spoiled anyway. But it goes to show. I think it's half the fact that they're just very lazy about doing it, but also half because a bit like with the Freddy makeups, they change throughout the Elm Street movies. It's because each person who got hired wants to put their own stamp on it. And I reckon it's partly that the makeup effects people decided they didn't just want to recreate what had already gone before. They wanted to do their own twist on it. But I think it was quite distracting, especially as you say. I mean, in H2O, the mask changing 3 times. I mean, that is just. I mean, they pay people for continuity, for Christ's sake. So surely they could have got that right. I mean, it is a bit ridiculous, but. I mean, I really like the mask in Halloween. I mean, I think it's fantastic, and I think it's John Carpenter also said that it was a throwback. He was inspired by a Mario Bava film, Blood and Black Lace, which had a killer which has a faceless white mask with kind of stocking over their face, which completely removes their face of any identity, any emotions, anything, and so. I suppose the irony actually with Michael Myers' mask is what his mask is showing no emotion, but not the irony, but maybe the irony underneath. He's using it to hide emotion, but he doesn't actually have any emotions, which is shown when he takes the mask off at the end. His face is almost like a droopy kind of blank canvas, even under the mask. I think it's a great, let's face it. I mean, Halloween's such a fantastic movie, and where would we be without that mask? Yeah, let's face it. So, any other thoughts about the mask, guys? Or
I kind of think that I am curious to see what it would have been like if he would have wore the clown mask, but I don't think it would have been as successful of a series if he would have went with a clown mask. I don't think it would have been.
I mean, I think I agree with you. I mean, it kind of captures the zeitgeist. I mean, what films off the top of my head? I mean, apart from obviously we're talking about the Jester outfit in the Slaughter High, and there was the Clown Murders, wasn't there? Which was like a very early semi-protest slasher, but not really.
Class Reunion Massacre did a clown mask.
Yeah, no, they did, and that was pretty creepy, wasn't it? That, I mean, is there any other slashers that have actually done? I mean, isn't there some relatively new ones like Fear of Clowns and stuff like that have done sort of things? But I've not seen any of those films, so I don't know. But I can't think of any other classic era. What are those
direct-to-video movies that came out? The 2 movies, Nathan?
Oh, Camp Blood! Oh, Camp those Blood. Movies are so awesome. I love Camp Blood.
Yes,
you would.
I do.
Well,
there's also Clown House, but that's kind of got a stigma attached to it,
Yeah. But I don't think there's any classic slasher movies that actually, well, as in talking about from 1978 to 1984, to utilise the clown mask that I can think of. And if you're listening to this and we've just completely forgotten one and you know one, why not write in? And we'll be coming up with the address that you can write into relatively shortly. Okay. Well, that, I mean, obviously that's generated quite a lot of debate, and obviously we're having a mass debate here today. I know. Anyway, so moving on. Thank you. Moving on to a Hero Week. On to okay. And Joseph, what's your number one?
My number one is the Ronald Reagan mask from the Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze thriller Point Break. Now, I know that's not a slasher movie, but I kid.
You're going to cause trouble.
My number one is actually the owl mask from Michaela Sovi's Stage Fright.
Okay, yeah, excellent.
For one, it's a really unique mask, and it kind of acts as a metaphor. I mean, the killer is the owl, and the victims are the mice. Not to spoil too much, but I recently did an interview with Giovanni Lamberto Radice, however you say his name, and he said Michele Sovi had a vivid dream about a man wearing an owl mask, and when he woke from the dream, he painted this image in his head, and then he translated it to the screen. And anyway, big props to Clayne Parker, who plays the killer, Irving Wallace, for giving the killer a bit of grace while wearing such a large mask. It's kind of like Girls' Night Out, and how it's really ridiculous, but at the same time, it's really unnerving.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, it is kind of that whole great thing of the idea of the owl as the predator, and the people as the mice. It's very effective. I mean, it's a fantastic movie. I really love it. I mean, even with that incredibly cheesy, even then, saxophone solo at the beginning, it's still it's such a nail biter of a movie. I really like it, but I know we may well be covering it at some point in relatively soon, so we don't want to possibly talk about it too much. But
No.
But again, I was thinking, are there any other bird masks in existence in slash movies? I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I think Stage Fright set the mold, and it hasn't been broken.
Absolutely, yeah. But interestingly enough, I just come back because I don't think you got. We've only got who have you got? Just Nathan next, isn't it? No, yeah, Nathan next and me. But I do political masks. You're talking about the Ronald Reagan mask, and obviously there was the Richard Nixon mask, wasn't it? In the Highway, what's it called? Highway
Horror House on
Highway. The one. And also there was the Ronald Reagan mask, wasn't there, in the Tripper?
Yeah, David Arquette's movie. Yeah.
And who is going to do the first slash movie with a Sarah Palin mask? That's what I want to know. Wouldn't that
frightening?
It's going to be frightening, but it's got to happen, isn't it? I'm sure it happens soon. So, how about you guys? You got any thoughts about sort of Nathan and Erik about Stage Fright?
No, I think it's a great choice. I think it's potentially ridiculous, and the film treads a fine line. I won't talk about it too much, but it treads a fine line between being serious and being cheesy. But I think the owl mask is a really good choice. I think the most disturbing aspect of the film, though, is John Morgan in a leotard.
Or that horrible dubbing on his voice.
Yes.
Yeah, he might talk about
Ladies
that
and
more.
gentlemen, Irving Wallace.
Yeah, dubbed by Justin, apparently.
Sorry?
Ooh.
I didn't catch that, Erik. So Gilbert's back in the room. So if you hear any jingles,
I was just insinuating that you dubbed John Morgan's voice in Stage Fright.
Oh, did you? Oh.
The really camp voice.
How nice. Do I sound very camp to you, Erik?
No, you don't.
No, okay. Anyway, I was going to say, Eric's back in the room. Not Erik, so Gilbert is back in the room. So if you hear any jingles, it's not sort of the jester from...
Not Santa Claus.
Or Santa Claus either.
Yeah.
And, okay, excellent. And so, Nathan, do you want to go with your number one?
My number one is the pig mask from Motel Hell. My problem is that I think that this mask should have been used throughout the movie, and it should have been more of a slasher-esque movie, and I would have probably loved it. As it is, I still like it, and I do appreciate its like campy charm. But that scene with the pig mask holding the chainsaw, that scene gave me nightmares as a kid. So I kind of wish the rest of the movie could have held up to that. But that's a pretty creepy mask with the blood on it. It's a creepy mask.
I agree. It's kind of Motel Hell is one of those films that's kind of not exactly forgotten today, but because it's not really. Well, it's kind of a slasher movie, but it's not really a slasher movie, is it? It's kind of like a dark comedy.
Yeah, I'd say it's a dark comedy with slasher undertones.
Yeah,
because they do they do kill people and slit their throats and stuff. But it still definitely falls more under a dark comedy, probably.
No, absolutely. How about you guys? Joseph?
Yeah, I haven't seen the film for a very long time, but that image is certainly striking because, I mean, it's on the cover of one of my Fangorias, the pig head mask and the chainsaw. It's very striking.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they steal that image for Cemetery High? Or was she wearing a mask on the cover of that?
And she wasn't wearing a pig mask.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure it wasn't a pig mask. I think she was a skull.
Do you know who I think might have stolen it? Or Suede? Because isn't the Animal Nitrate video have somebody with a pig mask on?
I think it does, actually. Yeah. Yes, the wonderful Suede, or UK Suede, or London Suede, as they're known in across the pond.
I saw them during the week, actually, in Dublin, and I'm only getting my hearing back now. I was right up the front by a speaker.
Fantastic. Yes, I know.
Big mistake.
Very, very wonderful band. I saw them many years ago. But the only other film I thought actually might have been inspired by Motel Hell was Saw, the original Saw movie. With the pig mask, which is one of the few really creepy sort of bits in the Saw movie. Or I don't know if the pig masked person makes any appearances in the other sequels, but in the original, I remember that was really creepy, and obviously I imagine that was very possibly inspired by Motel Hell. So excellent. Well, coming up to, I'll just round off with my number one, and of course, what else could it be but the hockey mask from Friday the 13th films?
Yay!
Hey, obviously, Jason, when he appears in the first film, he comes up au naturel. He's got, he's slightly misshapen and stuff, but he's having, coming up from a dip. And in the second film,
I don't think you should say au naturel in correlation with a little boy. That's kind of sad.
I think he's wearing pants.
Well, I say au naturel, as in like he's kind of naked from, who knows if he's got pants on? I'm not even going there. I'm not even thinking about that. But I imagine, I imagine he has. Anyway, we're not going there. But obviously in the second film, they decide, obviously a nod probably to the Town That Dreaded Sundown. He's got a burlap sack on his head with one eye hole, which you imagine would be very difficult to get around, let alone chase teenagers and kill them. It would have been incredibly difficult and not particularly stylish either. And so obviously they decided to go in the third film when one character has a hockey mask and Jason picks up the hockey mask, and then obviously a legend is born. I mean, who knows how different it would have been if he decided to wear a veil and a fascinator. I don't know, it could have been completely different. But no, he wears a hockey mask. And again, it's taking something from sort of middle Americana, something, that idea of taking something that's good and natural and proper, a bit like a summer camp in some ways. And obviously Friday the 13th turns the summer camp into like a charnel house, and that's what the early 80s slashers, a lot of them did. Listen, Halloween took suburbia as a place where you're safe to a place where you are stalked and killed. And Friday the 13th movies took summer camps as places where you send your children to keep them safe. And in fact, the irony is you're sending your children away to be slaughtered. And so it's all about turning, it's all kind of punk rock, I kind of guess, in some ways, in its ethics, or ethos, is doing that, turning things on its head. And obviously the hockey mask, again, depersonalizes Jason. And of course, but underneath the mask, he's horribly disfigured, as we know, and of course every Friday the 13th, or pretty much all of them, have him being unmasked at the end of it. But really, his kind of the whole thing with Jason is the hockey mask, is his identity, and it's pretty frightening. I mean, one of the things, because we don't really have hockey in this country in any big meaningful way, and the hockey mask, I've just always wondered this. Who actually wears a hockey mask when they're playing hockey? Does everyone wear the
goalie?
Mask?
The goalie.
Is it just a goalie? Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, so I thought that might be the case. So
because they don't want to get hit in the face with a puck.
Yes, but who does?
Fair enough.
But yeah, so I mean that's my number one. I mean it's probably the most iconic masks. I'm sure if you showed the average Joe in the street a hockey mask, the first thing that would come to their mind would be Jason. Out of every slasher movie masks going, even Michael Myers' mask, I think Jason's hockey mask is probably the most iconic of all of them. I mean, would you agree?
So iconic that they actually ripped it off in the Bloody Murder movie. So fuck you, BTK. I don't care if you like it. Eat shit and die.
And a shout out to our people on the boards.
I love you, BTK. I'm just kidding.
But there was some controversy about whether, because Alone in the Dark we talked about, there's somebody in a hockey mask in that, and I can't remember actually now. But I think there was controversy whether or not the people making Friday the 13th have ripped that off or vice versa. But I think again it was one of those kind of happy accidents. But Yeah, I mean, have you guys got any other thoughts about Jason? Or honestly, we will be covering.
Like you, Justin, I had no idea that it was a hockey mask because we don't have hockey over here. So I just thought it was a mask. I never even questioned what it was. I mean, I didn't even realize it was a hockey mask until maybe 4 or 5 came out, and I was reading about it in Fangoria or Film Review or something. But it's absolutely a terrific mask. Yeah, really, really good, really effective.
Because the weird thing in this country, only girls play hockey in the UK. I don't know about in Ireland. So
and there's men's hockey as well. Come on.
But there is. But it's a whole jolly hockey sticks kind of thing, isn't it? And it's girls in pigtails running around shouting.
Centurions type, yeah.
Exactly. So it could have. So this is what's the weird thing. I mean, if you're in America, this won't really make much sense to you. But in the UK, the whole idea of hockey is kind of slightly well-to-do bucktooth girls playing hockey in pigtails, running around shouting, and then go to gymkhanas. And obviously, that's not particularly scary. And I imagine Jason wasn't a bucktooth girl, a teenage girl. But maybe just imagine if he had been. So anyway, on that bombshell,
I think the idea Jason's hockey mask is ice hockey, which is far more fearsome than grass or turf hockey, whatever it's called.
It is ice hockey, like NHL, National Hockey League.
Yeah.
If I wanted to mention the first when he first gets his mask in part 3, and he has it in part 4, he's got the little red marks under his eyes, and then in part 5, when it's Roy doing the killing, he's got blue marks under his eyes. So it kind of, and then when he goes in part 6, when he comes back, it's back to red. So it's kind of like a little hint there that that's not really Jason in part 5.
Right.
It wasn't a good enough hint for me, because for somebody who can't tell the differences in the Halloween masks, I mean, I definitely am not going to notice triangle differences on Jason's mask.
Come on, Roy, get your hand.
Can I just say, as an aside, when I was at the Suede concert on Tuesday night, there was a guy in the audience who looked just like Shelley from Friday the 13th Part 3, and I'd actually seen him at a previous gig I'd gone to as well.
Maybe it was him.
Maybe it was, yeah. So obviously he survived Jason's attack.
Well, there you go. So
you'd have to be a practical joker to like Suede.
Ooh.
Do you know? Have you even ever heard any Suede, Joseph?
I'm sorry?
Have you actually ever heard any Suede?
Unfortunately.
Oh, well.
I don't even know who that is.
No, actually, I like them. They're campy, and I like them.
Exactly. Well, not the camp. I wouldn't say that campy is not the word I would use, but
or cheesy. Sorry, cheesy.
Cool, I think.
Cool, I think is the word, and they're coming back in a quite a big way. So anyway. So I think actually we're already well over the hour mark, so we've whittled on perfectly because we were a bit worried. When we come to the Slayer, we'll talk about that in a minute. We were a little bit worried. There's not actually that much information about the film. We thought you might not be able to talk for too long, but obviously we've managed to talk for England, Ireland, and America combined. And we still haven't got to our question of the fortnight. So
do you want to do the question now, or do you have any viewer feedback?
Do we want to do feedback first? Yeah, well, let's do feedback first. How about, Joseph, have you got any feedback you want to...
I have 3.
Okay, excellent.
This one is from a man named Corey. Feldman, I don't know, but his name is Corey. He says, guys, great show. I'm a podcast nut, having listened to everything from Arrow in the Head to Bloody Disgusting, and they bow down to each and every one of you. No one has more slasher knowledge than you 4 guys, and I think the personality each of you brings to the table helps. Also genial, funny, and very informative. Keep doing these shows, and I will keep listening as long as my ears don't fail me. And here's another from, he didn't leave a name, it's initials, MMMIPA. It's the movies we love, but with fans that love them as much as we do record them. Great times. Guessing English is not his first language. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, this is from Starman82 says... This show is so great, and the first reason why is that they focus on my favorite horror subgenre, slasher films. Not only do they talk about slasher films, but they are constantly dropping new knowledge on me about slasher movies, and I'm pretty well versed on the subject myself. The hosts have a great chemistry together and are always entertaining. I would recommend this show to any fan of horror, and definitely slasher fans. I hope they continue to record until I'm old and gray. Keep up the great work, guys.
Excellent, very nice. So, you guys, Nathan and Eric, have you got any feedback?
No.
No? Oh,
I have none. I have some from myself, but I don't think that would matter.
That doesn't matter. I've got a couple here that I'll just read out quickly. There's somebody called Tosca Top Socks. I'm not sure who that is, but
Tosca Top Socks.
Tosca Top Socks. So thank you, Tosca Top Socks, which is could be a bit of a tongue twister there, could go horribly wrong. But he says, or she says, a superb series of podcasts, informative, well-researched and surprisingly funny. And then, bizarrely, I think this is probably a typo, they say, very additive listening. So unless they're saying that we're obviously imbibing on loads of tartrazine, I think hopefully they mean very addictive listening. And if that's the case, Tosca, Top Socks, thanks for writing in, and hopefully we'll have more for you in the future.
I love that name, by the way.
It's a great name. Awesome. It's a great name. And I got one more from somebody called Gray. And it says, Justin, I wanted to write in and let you know that I think your show, obviously not just my show, it's your show too, is the best that I've ever listened to. I'm a big slasher fan, and in fact do my own segment about slashers for other shows. Your guys' knowledge of classic slashers puts mine to shame, though. I do think you're a little rough, though, on Blood Night, The Legend of Mary Hatchet, but I could see where those characters might rub someone up the wrong way. Keep up the good work, and I'll keep listening. And also says I've sent him a link to the slasher movie music compilation Saturday Night Cleaver, which again I've had a few people writing saying they want a link. So it's a free link if you want it. Just write in, and I'll send you. It's like an hour and a half's worth of music, I think, from classic slasher movies. So it's it's a fun time, good thing to listen to on the way to work or whatever. So send us through, and also send us more feedback. We love feedback, good or bad, or preferably not indifferent, but just send it through. So Joseph, could you like the one of the ladies in Wheel of Fortune, come on and give us the email
Vanna
address.
White.
Vanna White, exactly, from Graduation Day. No, what was it?
Let me get my slinky dress on here real quick.
You haven't got it on. You told me you had it on. Have you taken it off? You took it off while we're doing the podcast. Josie,
yeah, I was naked while we were doing the podcast.
Okay.
I have to. Anyway, that email address is the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com. Those dots are full stops for our non-American audience.
No, we understand dots. It was when you started using the word period that we were getting a bit confused.
Yes.
Well, now you tell me. Thanks a lot.
No, period means something completely different in this country, as you can imagine. It's kind of like...
It means that here as well, but people say period sometimes.
You see, you took a perfectly good language and you just ruined it.
Well, we only say it once a month.
Okay, right, fair enough. Okay, well, moving swiftly on, I'm not sure I can seek into it, but what we're going to do, we're now going to hand over to Erik, the lovely Erik, for the question of the week or the fortnight. And what is your question you're going to pose to us, Erik?
My question this week, Justin, is, where do babies come from? Joseph?
My ass?
No. My question is actually more slasher specific than that. I'll be glad to hear. This is sort of the reverse of guilty pleasures, which we discussed early on the podcast, and this is sort of guilty shames. It's things within the slasher genre that, as a slasher fan, you're supposed to like, but you don't. I mean, this could be films that you think are overrated, or films that you just completely hate, or parts of films that you hate. My guilty secret is, and I think I've mentioned this previously on the podcast, is I'm not a huge fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I'm afraid to say. I know, now bear me out here. I think the first half of the film is really, really good. Really good. But I think the second half of the film completely lets it down. I think it's tedious, it's boring. I'm constantly looking at my watch going, is this nearly over? It's really noisy, gives me a headache. So yeah, and I don't like any of the sequels either.
No, okay.
No.
You're fired.
I know.
Oh wow!
Sorry. I mean, but I, in fairness, I do really like the first half of the film.
That's not good enough.
Okay.
Where would you just out of interest, Erik, where would you have taken the film if you could?
You see, the thing is, I don't like those mad family type films that much, I have to say. What I didn't like really is that it's one character trapped by the family and screaming a lot for half an hour or however long that sequence lasts. It seems to go on forever to me. I would have taken it maybe in more slasher territory, maybe having her sort of not know really what's going on until maybe the final 10 or 15 minutes. And
right, yeah.
But just having her sort of tied to the chair screaming was boring me to tears every time I watch it, I'm afraid.
It's a bit of an endurance test, isn't it? I mean, I think that's obviously...
Well, people say that, yeah, it's supposed to be an endurance test, it's supposed to be horrific and that, but to me it's not. It's an endurance test because it's tedious rather than it's horrific.
Right. Yeah, well, no, fair enough. I mean, I think, it's going to hopefully generate some, debates amongst people. And I mean, if you don't...
Debate or hate mail?
Well, we shall see.
That email address again is...
But that's the thing is...
Well, people are going to say, well, what does he know? He likes Dirty Dancing, and fair enough.
Well, it is fair enough. Well, it is fair enough. I mean, it's fair enough that you've got your opinion, because, I mean, we're all going to come on to things which I imagine are going to be quite contentious. So, I mean, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's just like I've said this before with proto-slashers, and there's people say that it isn't a slasher movie, and of course it's a slasher movie. I mean, it's got teenagers being killed by someone being chased around with somebody with a chainsaw and hacking them up. I mean, there isn't anything more slasherific than that. But what you're right in saying is...
Not even Children of the Corn.
Well, no, I mean they are. I think slasher movies, you can't put it into a box. I mean, you have films that got slasher movie leanings and stuff like that, and it's kind of I think it's almost like trying to put lightning in a bottle to describe and say what is slasher movie and what isn't, because you're ultimately going to come undone. But certainly the first half of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is, if not a slasher movie, then it's a proto-slasher, and then it goes off in a completely different direction to the tried and tested formula. And of course it would do. It's made in 73, 74, whenever. If the slasher movie hadn't been invented as we know it with Halloween by that point. So it's no surprise it does that. But certainly the first half is a slasher movie, no debate as far as I'm concerned. But I agree. It's not a film I watch regularly. I mean, it's a film you put on to challenge yourself, and it's not necessarily, it's certainly, I wouldn't put it in my top 10 films of all time. So, so there you go. Okay.
I feel less alone now.
But I wouldn't put Dirty Dancing there either. So,
I would.
Would you?
Yay. My number one.
Of all time. Slasher movies.
I'm having the time of my life.
I want to dance.
I've never
felt this way before.
I think I've told you, Eric, haven't I? I've never seen Dirty Dancing.
What?
I've never watched it.
I haven't either.
Nobody puts Erik in the corner.
No, that's true.
Apart from Bob Hoskins. So are we moving on from that,
yes.
Erik, or have you got any more?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So my guilty secret is that I'm not a huge fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So we'll go to Nathan. You're the one who inspired this question by giving me a controversial opinion on something. Why don't you share that with us?
Oh, yeah. I forgot what we were talking about for a minute there. I have so many responses to this question, but I had to really narrow it down. But anyway, I'm not a big fan. And we got a lot of flack when we did our favorite scores for not picking some of the more popular titles. Friday the 13th was thrown in there, and somebody threw in Slaughter High. And the reason I didn't pick them is I'm not that big of a fan of them. I don't think that the Friday the 13th scores are all that. And I hate the Slaughter High score. I mean, I think it's just stupid. But Friday the 13th, I mean, it's good. I mean, it's a classic score. I give it props because I understand it's influential and it's got a huge fan base. But just listening to it myself, I'm just like, I don't get what the big deal is with it. I really don't. But I'm the same way with Goblin scores for Italian movies, too. I actually think they kind of ruin the movie for me.
Well, it's kind of lots of controversy here, isn't there? I can imagine there's people at home sort of punching their walls, or doing sort of like sticking dolls,
or punching people in the ring.
Exactly. I mean, it could be bedlam out there. If you listen, if you're walking to work listening to podcasts, don't punch anyone when you hear something you don't agree with. Just write in and tell us. Tell us if you don't agree. Just tell us. We're more than willing to tell you that you're wrong. So bring it on. Bring it on. But I mean, what about you guys? What do you think of?
Well, Harry Manfredini's scores all sound the same. I mean, if you've watched House or Hills of Eyes Part 2, the Wes Craven version, I mean, the scores are basically Friday the 13th recycled. So if you don't like Friday the 13th, you don't like any of his music, I'm afraid. I'd have to disagree with Nathan. I think they are quite good. Now, I don't know if that's because I can't separate them from the films or not. But I particularly like the disco funked up music from part 3. I'm also quite a big fan of Goblin as well, I'm afraid, Nathan. I'm sorry. I mean, I really do like... I know you singled out the music to Deep Red. I really like that score, and I love the scores to Suspiria and Tenebrae as well.
Well, wait, I want to say Suspiria, I do admit I really like the score to it, so I don't dislike Goblin in general. I'd really like Suspiria. And it's okay, Eric, because Texas Chainsaw Massacre is my #1 movie of all time. So, it's okay.
Oh, God, it's a good job we're on different continents, isn't it? Anyway, I could make a inappropriate joke about Goblin, but I won't. So, okay.
Please.
Joseph, do you want to come in and let us know, come out of the closet and show what's the thing that really riles you?
I can't come out of the closet just yet. I've got to wait on that. But my secret shame is I think the first Friday the 13th film is a little overrated. Now, before the three of you lynch me, my reason for that is, while I do love the film and I consider it to be one of the best, I still think it pales in comparison to Part 2 in every single way, except maybe the murders. I'm also of the opinion that while Betsy Palmer gives a teeth-gnashingly bravura performance, her reveal is essentially a big cheat. She's never really alluded to in the film, and she just shows up in the last reel and kind of flashes her pearly whites and goes bonkers. The first time I saw the film, I was kind of pissed off. I was like, who is this person? Have we seen her before? I've grown to kind of love the reveal over time, but anyway, I think that's my secret shame, is that the first Friday the 13th film, while good, is a little overrated, I think.
Shocking. I have to say, I love the first Friday the 13th. Love it.
Me too. We can get back
I can understand why you think...
I like the film.
I understand why you think Part 2 is
Obviously,
better,
I love
because
the
I do
film.
as well.
Well, it's got a better hero in it also.
Well, I agree there. I mean, I think Amy still, beats Alice in the first film hands down. But I think she's a great heroine. I love the first film. I think it's great. I mean, interestingly, wasn't it Betsy Palmer did say, didn't she, to Sean Cunningham, that she thought it was a cheat. That they would.
It is a cheat.
Where the hell have I come from? She said, "Aren't you even going to show me in the scene at the beginning when the hitchhiker goes into the cafe or into the diner?" And he could have quite easily have done that, couldn't he? He could have quite easily just had her being the one giving directions or something. And I don't really understand why he didn't do that. But I do love Friday the 13th, and if you ever get a chance to see it on the big screen, do, because it really comes alive on the big screen. I think it's fantastic.
I saw Part 5 on the big screen last year.
Did you?
Cool.
Did that?
Yes.
Did that work?
And I'm going to see it again on the big screen this year. This Friday, actually.
Oh, right, excellent.
Cool.
Whereabouts?
At Monster Mania in Maryland.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
They're having a midnight screening of Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, which is, I admit, my favorite of the series because I think it's the most entertaining. It's not the best, but it's the most entertaining.
It is very entertaining.
I'm going to watch that at a midnight showing, and I can't wait.
Well, do you want to tell us, before we get to my sort of secret shame, as it were, do you want to talk about what you're going to be doing next weekend?
Oh, yes. Nathan and I are driving to Baltimore, and we're going to a convention called Monster Mania. It's the 18th one, and basically it's a Friday the 13th reunion. There's like several Friday the 13th cast members, directors. Most, if not all, of the Jasons are going to be there. Most, if not all, of the final girls are going to be there. It's just a big
and who especially is going to be there?
Dana Kimmel's going to be there. I am going to meet her. I have to. Basically, it's just a big weekend-long thing dedicated to Friday the 13th. There are a few non-Friday the 13th people like Lance Henriksen and Amelia Kincaid. They're going to be there. I'm going to try to meet both of them if I can. But it's just, I don't know, it's just a weekend thing, and it's going to be really fun. You've got to go up, both of you do a duet to Dinah singing Sweet Melissa from Sweet 16. Well, apparently she doesn't remember the movie, remember? Well, exactly. That's why you've got to do it. So I'm going to remind her. Are you
sing the Ooh Baby, Hey Baby song to Miguel Nunez if he's there?
Yeah. Well, I met him last year, and I forgot to do that.
Oh. Well, also, I was going to say, I mean, if you can, please, if you get a chance, do get a Dana Kimmel saying you're listening to Hysteria Continues, because we love you, Dana, really. Apart from all the mocking and stuff like that, we think you are an adequate actress in almost. so I don't want to damn with faint praise. And your guppy fish, it was like Frances Farmer or something. It was like Jessica Lange in Frances. Descending into madness. I've never seen a finer portrayal of descent into madness than Dana when she went into that guppy fish face at the end of Friday the 13th Part 3. She was she was robbed at the Oscars that year.
Do you remember when she did an interview? I think it was with Fangoria, and someone asked her, "How did you get the role in Friday the 13th Part 3?" And she's like, "Well, someone saw my performance in Sweet 16 and loved it, so that's how I get the role." But
they may have not loved it in the kind of ways she might have expected. But obviously, we don't want to be mean about Dana because we've done that already. But if you can get any,
haven't.
Well, right. But if you can get any kind of hint of an interview with her, I'd love to speak to her because maybe she has a sense of humour. Probably not, but who knows? But yeah, I'm sure we're going to have a great time.
We'll find out Friday or Saturday or Sunday.
Absolutely, you'll be able to feedback next episode, won't you, as well? Which will probably be, in it won't be. We won't be straight back in after you've been there, but next time we do the show, you can feedback about Monster Mania, which will be great.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, well, I just kind of because time's running on, we're about an hour and a half already. Who would have thought it? Anyway, but my secret shame is that I don't really like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies that much. I love the first one. I think the first one was great. In fact, it's the first ever X-rated film, and of course we've spoken about this before. X-rated in the UK before 1984 or 1985 was the certificate that was given to horror films and adult films, not porn films, sort of in the UK. So that's different to America.
The equivalent of R in the States.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw it when I was 16 in the UK, and we snuck in, and I've spoken about this before, and I loved it. And then I saw Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, which had already gone in production. I remember actually coming out of the cinema, going to see it, and saying to my people we'd seen it, and they thought it was amazing. They thought it was fantastic. We had a great time watching it. And I'm saying, well, they're already making a second one. I'm sure the second one's going to be amazing. And of course, I saw the second one and thought, it was fucking awful. But at the time, obviously, I've grown to love it since. But after that, increasingly, I find the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels, I just don't go back to. I find them pretty poor, to be honest. I've got the documentary about the Elm Street films, which is great. What's it called again? Can you remember? It's
Never Sleep Again.
That's it. And it's fantastic. It's great. But ultimately, I was watching it and thinking, Part 3's not bad. Part 4's okay, but then I just don't get excited about them at all. And looking back on it, I find the Nightmare on Elm Street films pretty meh, really. I don't hate them, I don't like them. I'll go back to the Halloween sequels, and I go back to Friday the 13th sequels time and time again, and to the Clash at Slash movies, but I don't think I've ever even seen Part 5, actually. I don't know if I've ever watched it.
Oh, you're not missing anything.
Well, I know. I've heard by reputation it's pretty awful. But I do remember seeing Freddy's Dead at the cinema, and what a pile of crap that is. It was awful. Maybe it's got camp value now. But I remember it had the big thing at the end was to put your 3D glasses on now. And it was like literally, it was two turds doing a tango at the end of the thing. And it was it was awful, like completely out of sync. It's dreadful. Anyway, that is my secret shame, is Nightmare on Elm Street films can go fuck themselves as far as I'm concerned. So,
apart from the first two.
Apart from the first two, of course.
Well, I'd have to disagree. I disagree to a slight extent, but I can understand why you wouldn't like them. I used to love Dream Warriors. That was the first Nightmare on Elm Street I saw in the cinema. But I think I watched it too many times because I'm absolutely sick of it now. I remember going to see Dream Master with the promise that was supposed to be the best one yet, and I thought it was really, really lackluster. It had great effects, but it was really, really sort of episodic and choppy, and it had no storyline. I did see Part 5, and I think it's not too bad, to be honest. Part 6 was dreadful. Some of the 3D was really effective in the cinema, I thought. But the big, showstopper, apparently, where Freddy's glove is coming at the screen at the very end, was rubbish. It was like 8 blades instead of 4.
The guy
I'm the only person in the world who doesn't like New Nightmare. as well.
I like New Nightmare.
And I hated the remake. But up until part 5, I thought they were fairly okay.
The guy in part 5 who plays the comic book geek is the worst actor I have ever seen in my life. Ever.
Have you not seen Savage Water?
Actually, yes, that's the movie we're talking about today, and I think
I think we should. We have had some debate about coming back and doing, because we're doing films. We're choosing them because we're thinking we really like them and stuff. But we thought we should actually choose at least one or maybe two really, really bad slasher movies that we can rip apart and have a lot of fun with. So that may be coming up on a future show. I'm sure it will do. I mean, one thing,
Halloween.
Like Halloween, hardly.
John Carpenter's Halloween, because it's not as good as Rob Zombie.
No, it's true.
Actually, there's a guy we know named Jamie. He actually thinks that the Halloween remake is better than the original. Is that right, Nathan?
No.
Yeah, he does.
That can't be true.
Seriously, he really does think that the remake is better than.
He likes it because he says the remake explains everything about Michael Myers, whereas the original doesn't tell you anything, and he hates that.
He has no imagination.
Yeah.
It's funny. Well, we watched Hellbent today, and people we watched it with, I talked about earlier, were criticised it and said, "Well, you didn't really find out why the person was killing anyone." And I was going, "So, why do you need to know that?" And people seem to always want something on the plate, literally spoon-fed everything. And it's kind of like, you just don't fucking need to know it, do you? It's all about the slash. It's all about the cat and mouse theatrics, and you don't. I mean, once the backstory comes into it, it ruins it, and that's why Halloween is such a perfect movie, because you don't know why these girls are being stalked. There's no rhyme or reason. It's literally someone's escaped from a mental asylum and has passed some girls on the street and just gone, "I'm going to kill you," and that's it. And that's a scary thing. And of course, as you move on through the sequels and all the backstory, it actually takes away from the scariness of the film. And unfortunately, obviously, Halloween 2, as much as I love it, the John Carpenter, well, not John Carpenter version, but the continuation of the film, because of the backstory, it takes it away, doesn't it? As far as I'm concerned,
it does take away from it. I agree.
Yeah.
I can't stop laughing. Nathan knows what I'm laughing at, don't you?
No.
Justin said, someone said that they didn't know why the person was killing them. Justin said, "Well, why do you need to know that?" You know what I'm talking about now?
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Just looking for a part number.
Junkyard Willie, yeah.
Well, do you want to share? What was that? Is that someone else you were watching films with?
No, it's like this prank call tape, and for some reason you said something that kind of popped it into my head, and I couldn't stop laughing, so I apologize.
That's okay. I just thought it was being very funny. But the last thing I was going to say, actually, the last reason why I dislike the Nightmare on Elm Street films is because the wisecracking Freddy Krueger, which worked in a dark way in the first film and kind of dark way in the second film, it basically ushered in all the wisecracking.
You mean bright neon pink in the second film?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, it's just that kind of ushered in that whole the killers making wisecracks from, and it reached the nadir or whatever with Psycho Cop. That kind of all those. I just didn't. It's cheesy now, but at the time I remember thinking, I want my killers to be mysterious, silent, and deadly. I don't want them. They're not fucking Bernard Manning or something, or some stand-up comedian. I don't want them making quips. And Freddy Krueger, just ushered in all of that, and it sounded a death knell for the slasher movie as far as I'm concerned. But and this is quite a nice segue into the Slayer, I think, because obviously we may be talking about Nightmare on Elm Street a little bit when we do the Slayer. So shall we wrap this up, guys, and go into our feature presentation?
Indeed.
Okay, well, before Eric's going to take us into the film, but before we do that, we'll play the trailer, and this is the trailer for the Slayer.
What you're about to see may shock you. It may frighten you more than you've ever been frightened before. Don't worry. It's only a maddening, horrifying nightmare. Or is it?
What are you gonna do?
Fire some flares. Did you give her the pills like I told you?
No. Maybe it's not a nightmare after all.
There's nothing up here.
Are they really alone, or is there an unwelcome guest? Is this a nightmare, or is it the fears we all have when we're alone in the dark? And if it's only a nightmare, why is everybody dead? Prepare yourself, because you will never want to be alone again. Prepare yourself for The Slayer.
Right, okay. Do you want to take it away, Erik?
Yeah, that's the trailer for the 1982 film The Slayer, directed by J.S. Cardone. Just a brief synopsis, and it's very brief because, like most slasher films, the plot isn't sort of the most important aspect of the film. Surrealist artist Kay is suffering from a recurring nightmare, so to ease her woes, her husband decides it might be a good idea to take her away somewhere for a long weekend. So she's whisked off to this remote island paradise, along with her brother Erik and his wife Brooke. When they reach their destination, I'm sure they're a bit disappointed to find it's not exactly the Costa del Sol. It's more like Dublin, with its overcast skies and blustering winds. And the forecast is about to get a lot worse, meaning that they're going to be trapped on the island because there's no way that the plane can land on the beach for them. So that wouldn't normally be a problem, except that someone or something starts to pick them off one by one. The emotionally fragile Kay is suffering from a major case of deja vu, and she's convinced that this figure, this demonic figure that's appearing in her dreams, may be actually metamorphosizing into reality and committing murders. But of course, no one believes her. So it's up to our big-haired heroine to uncover what's going on before she too becomes a victim of the Slayer. So this was a film I first caught up on, actually, when I was about 18. It was released in 1992 by Vipco Video in the UK in a slightly cut form, because what happened with this film was it was originally one of the famous video nasties and was removed from the shelves in 1984. But it wasn't prosecuted as a video nasty as such and was let go, but it didn't get a reissue until 1992 with 14 seconds of cuts. And those cuts were mainly to a scene where Brooke, who is played by Carol Cottonbrook, who happens to be the director's wife, she gets impaled by a pitchfork, which comes out through her chest. I was actually watching the VHS that I had from back in the early 90s today, just to compare it with the uncut version, which I also have on DVD. And that scene is completely gone. I mean, it's over in a flash, whereas on the uncut version, it goes on for maybe about 10 seconds. So, I mean, that was obviously sort of the main thing. I mean, one of the bugbears of the BBFC at the time was easily accessible household equipment like a pitchfork being used as a murder weapon. But, I mean, it's a film that I don't think relied on the gore, because it's a film I really loved. And it reminded me, Justin, of the way you feel about Superstition. You love the film, but there's also kind of nostalgic attachment to it. And that's the way I feel about The Slayer, because I came to this film... I approached it as I want to see all these video nasties. I want to see what the fuss is about all these films. So that's why I went to get The Slayer. Now, at that stage, I'd seen a few of the ones that had made the list, and most of them had disappointed me in the fact that they were just completely boring, and I could not understand why on earth there was a fuss over them. But The Slayer, I think, is a well-made movie. The director... J.S. Cardone, went on to make a few more films during the 80s. Most recently, he has been the writer of the ill-received remakes of Prom Night and The Stepfather. Ooh. So, I mean, he hasn't really matched the level of The Slayer, I don't think. I mean, his film after this was a non-horror film called Thunder Alley, which I really like. It stars Leif Garrett. I don't know if you remember him. He was a 70s heartthrob.
He was in People Toys, wasn't he? Devil Times 5?
AKA
he was.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's also known as the Crippler.
Oh, that's a reference to a real-life incident where he crashed a car and his friend in the passenger seat was paralyzed, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, I didn't know.
He's also in Cheerleader Camp, isn't
he? Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Oh, isn't Cheerleader Camp the one with Lucinda Dickey?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was watching Ninja 3: The Domination earlier, but I'm getting sidetracked now.
What a wonderful movie. Yes.
What a fantastic
I love that movie.
Yeah. And as you said, The Slayer kind of foreshadows what was to come with A Nightmare on Elm Street, except in The Slayer's case, when the victim falls asleep, they don't die in the dream. What happens is that Kay falls asleep and the killer comes into reality and starts picking off her friends. So she has to try and stay awake for the sake of everyone. So there are scenes of her trying to stay awake by drinking copious amounts of coffee. At one stage, she burns her hand with a cigarette, which is something that's done by the fat girl in Dream Warriors, the one who gets pulled through the television. So, I mean, it is foreshadowing kind of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Not totally. I mean, I know that Wes Craven says he wrote the script for Nightmare on Elm Street around 1980 or 81, so, which would have made it before The Slayer. If we are to believe him, so we can't really accuse him that much of plagiarizing. Okay, I've got a spoiler alert coming up because I'm going to talk about the ending of the film. What happens is at the end, it turns out possibly to be all a dream. The young Kay wakes up and we're led to believe the events of the film are yet to happen. It kind of reminded me of the end of Umberto Lenzi's City of the Walking Dead, also known as Nightmare City, but in that instance it was really annoying and kind of a cheat. But I think it's really effective in The Slayer. They hint at it more throughout the film. It might be building towards this. And speaking of which, there are two quite fun instances. The character of Erik, my namesake, he cuts himself shaving on the neck at one stage. And then later on, he's having a conversation with Kay about how he's working in the advertising industry, and he talks about things need a good hook. And then later in the film, he gets a good hook in the neck, a fishing hook, and he gets dragged out to sea by the Slayer. I thought that was kind of a fun thing. I mean, obviously a lot of thought had gone into the film. Maybe I'm giving it too much praise. I don't know. I'm interested to hear what you guys think. I know, Justin, you've gave it quite a positive review on Hysteria Lives, but I don't know how old that review is. I'll be interested to hear what your thoughts are now. Yeah, no, it is quite... Actually, I forgot to check out the review on Hysteria Lives, so I can't remember what I thought about it originally, but slightly bizarrely, it's probably maybe the best way to watch film, but I've been sort of trying to hold off from a flu bug kind of thing, and last night I had a bit of a fever, so I was watching it and I was feeling quite feverish, and so it was kind of feeling a bit like that kind of woolly-headed, slightly out of it feeling. So I was watching it, and it's probably the perfect way to watch the film like The Slayer. I really liked it. I mean, I thought it was, what's really interesting about it is it fits very neatly into the slasher movie sort of groove, I kind of guess. But it's very different because it's one of the few films that's got adults in it. You know, I mean, they're not pretending to be teenagers. I mean, these are actually people in their 30s, possibly even 40s. It's difficult to tell. It also has a bit of an art house pretension, which is quite interesting considering that J.S. Cardone has in recent times sort of put out sort of some awful... I mean, the Prom Night film is one of the very few films I've not sat all the way through. And I think I said it before, it kind of... The version I was watching broke 3/4 of the way through, and I just went, yes! I had absolutely no intention of watching the rest of it. I thought, I'm not going to go back to it. It was just awful. Whereas this film, it looked like actually he was putting quite a lot of intelligence behind it, and he knew obviously the market for the film. I really liked the dreamlike thing. And you're talking about the prefiguring or pre-shadowing of or foreshadowing of things, and it's obviously in one of the things like Kay is an artist. And she paints the theatre that's on the island. And what I thought a really nice touch is they go to this island, which is in the middle of nowhere. There seems to be just one house on there. There's also a derelict theatre. And in a really nice nod to like dream logic, where you don't question things. You just think, oh, there's a giant, I don't know, strawberry floating in the sky. You just don't question it. You just kind of go with the flow. And they kind of do that because there's no rhyme or reason to have this derelict, decrepit theatre on next to the beach. But they don't question it, you know. And I really like that because the whole thing is the dream logic all the way through, and it's arguable whether or not it is a dream ultimately or it's a premonition. I mean, it is a little bit... I do wonder if they were inspired by Bobby Ewing coming out of the shower, but no, I think that came after. So maybe the makers of Dallas were inspired by the Slayer. Who knows? But yeah, I can see
why the film got banned. I mean, the gore in the uncut version is very, very good. You know, and we've got I think I've mentioned we've got an interview with that Erik did coming up relatively shortly after we've heard from Joseph and Nathan about what they thought the film. Carl Cranes, who actually played the Slayer. But also we hopefully have secured an interview with Robert Short, who was the special effects guru behind this film. I'm waiting to hear back from him in a text interview, which I will put up on Hysteria Lives, along with a text interview with Carl Cranes at some point. But Robert Short did films such as Chopping Mall, Piranha, and not bizarrely, but compared to sort of low budget films, he went from making The Slayer in 81 to doing E.T., which is one of the biggest box office successes ever, and also had a very big critical success with his work on Beetlejuice. So I'm waiting to hear back from him, which will be really good. And Roger Corman actually says that the gore effects in The Slayer are some of the best he's ever seen. And I would, echo that. And you can see why the film possibly got banned. And we may talk about video nasties shortly. But the film, I don't want to go, I'll give the other guys a chance. But one other thing I do have to mention, and you've mentioned it briefly, Erik, is Kay's hair. Her hair just gets bigger and bigger throughout the movie, and I'm wondering whether or not J.S. Cardone thought it was obviously a nod to films like Repulsion, Roman Polanski's Repulsion, with the idea of the rotting rabbit in the fridge was I can't remember her name now. What's her name? Who's the famous French woman? Whatever her name is in. It's gone completely out of my head, but anyway, the woman who's in Repulsion, and the rabbit is showing her mind deteriorating. And I wondered if J.S. Cardone was doing the same thing with Kay's hair in The Slayer, because the more demented she got, the bigger her hair got, which I thought was a nice touch. So anyway, I've got more to say about it, but. So do you want to pass it over to someone?
Yeah, I was just going to say about Kate's hair, her huge hair and her sort of a long face. She really reminded me of Sigourney Weaver in Alien. I think, particularly in the way she's quite serious while everyone else is kind of joking and having a laugh. She really reminded me of that. And I did question the theatre on the island as well. I was like, why was there a theatre on an island with one house? How strange. Well, anyway, Nathan, what do you think of Slayer?
Just Catherine Deneuve. Catherine Deneuve was the woman I was thinking of. Oh, right, of course. Sorry, Karen.
Nathan, your thoughts on the Slayer?
I love the Slayer. I think it's a fantastic film. I love the death scenes in it. I think the gore scenes are really well executed, and I like the pitchfork scene's probably my favorite. And I think that's one of the scariest scenes in the whole movie, because you have Brooke trapped in the boathouse, and there's no way out except for this boarded up window behind her. And the Slayer has a pitchfork that he's holding up into the camera view, and he's like walking really slow towards her. I mean, almost like he's playing with her, because, there's no way she's going to make it out that window in time before he descends upon her with that pitchfork. But he doesn't like run at her real quickly or anything. He just kind of takes his time before he sneaks up behind her. And even when he stabs her, she's already broken the window, and her hands are on the edge of the window where the broken glass is, and it's cutting into her hands. I thought that was really well, paid attention to detail really well. And I like the fact that through the whole movie, when I first watched it, you don't see the Slayer at all. He's completely, behind the camera, in the shadows. You don't see him. And I kept thinking at the time, I'm worried that when he gets revealed, it's going to be very cheesy. It's going to ruin the effect of the movie for me. But when he's revealed, he's actually very scary looking. I mean, they definitely held up, to his big build-up. It was worth it for the payoff. I do find the ending to be a little confusing.
From what I was reading on in reviews and that, in magazines and internet and that, I think a lot of people probably disagree with you about the reveal of the Slayer. I mean, I happen to think it's quite a good effect. I mean, you have to bear in mind it's 1982 and it's a low budget film, but a lot of people were saying it's kind of a bit of a cheesy effect.
I really
disagree with all them. I think it's very scary.
Yeah, I think it's quite scary. I mean, it's kind of not you would expect, because the film builds it up to think, well, maybe the killer is actually human, don't they? Sort of basically.
Yeah, they kind of insinuate it might be Marsh, the pilot, who might be the killer.
Okay, so
anything else you want to say on that one, Nathan, or I pass?
Well, the only thing I wondered is, do you guys think that at the end, I know she wakes up and she's a little girl, and this is supposed to have been a nightmare of hers. And throughout the movie, as an adult, she talks about all the nightmares she's had and leading up to that. I mean, is it supposed to be like she's in a time loop and that every time that ending happens where the Slayer descends upon her, she's going to wake up and be a little girl again?
See, I think the ending can be interpreted a few different ways, I think. I mean, that interpretation is really good. It reminds me of the film Triangle, which was out a few years ago, which I really liked.
Movie.
Yeah, I love that movie too. Or it could be that she's been a young girl all along, and she's dreamt the whole events of the whole movie, which is kind of a premonition, and she gets given the kitten, which she's been referring to all through the film, the kitten that shows up dead a few days later in the freezer. But yeah, I think it's quite a vague ending, but satisfying at the same time.
Because the way I read it was that, like you have a dream, and then sometime in the day something will happen, or you'll hear something on the radio, or someone will say something, and you suddenly think, or deja vu, or did I dream that earlier? And it's because, the way that you can wake up with very distinct memories of the dream, and then throughout the day, very quickly they vanish unless you really make an effort to hold on to them. But you can get reminded about them. Just something will suddenly trigger a memory of a dream you've had, and that was my reading, but I mean they're all valid. Is that she woke up as a little girl, and then she saw the cat, and that was the thing that triggered her memory of the dream. But throughout the film, she was remembering things from her childhood dream, and she was just on this circular dream nightmare, just went on forever and ever and ever and never stopped, which is something that I think it was used originally in Dead of Night, the 1940s British anthology, which is still very effective, and also of course in the City of the Walking Dead as well, slightly less effectively, but it's been used in lots of films before.
Doesn't City of the Walking Dead end with the words "the end" or "is it" or something like that?
Something like that, yeah, absolutely. So.
Speaking of nightmares, I had a nightmare last night that I was being bullied by Ian Brown from the Stone Roses, and I had to go to the police.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Anyway, he tied my hands up with an elastic band, but I was able to escape.
That wasn't a sex dream, was it, Erik?
No, it wasn't a sex dream, no.
Okay, right.
Ian Brown wouldn't be my type.
Okay.
Right. Anyway, Joseph, your thoughts on the Slayer, please? Are you still there?
I am going to say that I hate the Slayer because... No, I'm just kidding. I love the Slayer, actually. I watched it last night again, and it has a made-for-TV feel to it, I think. With the opening credits, they're all bright, and they kind of come up. I also like the... like I've said in the past, any slasher film that has, like, torrential downpours of rain, I'm automatically going to like it. So in this movie's like a whole like thunderstorm through the whole thing, so that's a plus. But the thing I got from the Slayer is that it's actually, if you pay attention to it, it's actually a really good mystery. But the box ruins it by showing the Slayer, the image of the Slayer, because that reveal is like, is it in her head? Through the whole film, there's like hints where he's like, when she was little, she had a kitten, and then she said she had a dream, and then 2 days later, the kitten was, found in a freezer. So basically, could she be, having these weird dreams, then waking up, killing people? And they kind of, they take that away at the end by making you think that the pilot is there the whole time, and he might be the killer. And so it's kind of like juggling between these two people who could be the killer, and then at the very last second they actually reveal that she's not crazy. There really is this demonic force out there, and the reveal, I think, of the actual Slayer is really, really scary. And like Nathan, I think the effect is really well. But like I said, if you've seen the VHS box from like the early 80s, like when it was on the double bill with Scalps, they revealed the actual monster, and I think that kind of takes away from the actual mystery that most people don't pay attention, that this film really is a mystery, but that image ruined the mystery, I think. But
Sorry, Joseph, I was just going to say, on the UK box, they actually don't reveal a picture of the Slayer. They have a silhouette framed in a doorway, so you're not quite sure who it is. It probably helps preserve the mystery aspect.
Also, the original American one sheet, which I think it must be very rare, but I've seen a picture of it, has the same image as is on the UK box, which is it was a very similar image to the one that's on the Dario Argento Inferno, which is the silhouette with the flames.
Mm.
A friend of mine did a review for the Slayer once. Justin, you might remember him. Tyranno Rabbit from Alt Horror.
Oh, yeah.
He did a review for the Slayer, and he's like, the Slayer, he liked the Slayer, and he's like, and the image of the Slayer is really fantastically creepy, or at least it would have been if they hadn't revealed it on the goddamn box. And I always thought that was funny. But when you were talking about the ending, what I got from that was also, it's basically going back to show that the whole thing is a premonition. The little girl wakes up, the father gives her a kitten, and she has that boss-eyed, shocked look on her face. And it's basically saying, yeah, everything's real. It's just that whole thing was the little girl's premonition. So that's why through the whole movie and throughout her whole life, she remembers these things because she had that premonition through the whole thing.
Mike,
and one more thing. I do agree with whoever said it was Justin or Eric. The woman playing Kay, she looks identical to Sigourney Weaver in every aspect.
But that's the thing. You would have thought if she'd had a premonition, she knew what was going to happen. She would have chosen a different hairdo.
she kept saying, maybe gone a little easier on the hairspray, but she kept saying, "Have I been here before? Have I done this before?" And basically, she has, because she had that premonition. But another thing Eric said that I didn't pick up on the first time I saw the Slayer, but I picked up on it last night, is at the very beginning of the movie where, is it Erik who's shaving?
Yeah.
He's shaving and he cuts his neck, and it has like this crescendo music, goes like it's real creepy. I'm like, why would they play that when he's just shaving? And then I realized later that he's going to get killed with a hook through the throat. And I thought that was really, really nice foreshadowing. I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. I thought that was really clever. But no, the Slayer, I really do like it. I like it a lot, actually. And I'd say 7, maybe 8 out of 10. I really think it's a very underrated film.
Right, excellent. Well, that's it. I mean, are we talking about the Slayer and the reveal? I mean, Erik, do you want to maybe come back after we listen to the interview? Do you want to introduce your
I spoke to, now it's back Easter weekend, actually, which shows that we do a bit of planning on this program, believe it or not, on this podcast, I should say. I spoke to Carl Cranes. Now, that's the guy who played the Slayer in the film. He was also in The Gate and The Gate 2. And I started by asking him, how did he get involved in the Slayer?
Excellent, and here we go.
Erik, Kay's seen the killer in her dream. She's convinced that if she goes to sleep again, we'll all die.
Stop it, Brooke.
Why won't you listen?
Let me tell you something you don't know about my sister. When we were kids, my father gave her a kitten one Christmas, and 2 days later, my mother found the animal in the meat freezer we kept in the garage. It was frozen to death. And Kay said something in her dreams did it. My parents sent her to a psychiatrist until she was 16 because of her nightmares. And maybe that strange sensitivity is what makes her such a fine artist, but it's got nothing to do with David's death. What killed him was not a nightmare. It was something very real.
Erik!
Well, I was studying drama, studying acting in Los Angeles after school, after getting out of college. And I was studying at the Debbie Reynolds rehearsal studios. She had a wonderful studio there in the Valley, where she also kept a lot of the treasures that she had bought from MGM when they had their fire sale. And I was studying there with a man by the name of Michael Holmes, who was a wonderful acting teacher in L.A. at the time. I think he still may be. He was a disciple of Uta Hagen, who was a wonderful acting teacher out of New York and an actress as well. And another person studying there was Carol Cottonbrook, and we became friends, and along with Michael and Carol's husband, Joe. We would sometimes go out after class and, have dinner or whatever. So we became a little friendly. And when Joe started making the film, I guess they were looking around for somebody who could play the Slayer. They had a specific kind of look in mind. And I guess I fit the bill.
Of course, Joe is J.S. Cardone. Is that how you pronounce his name? That's
Joe Cardone, yeah.
He's the director of the film. Carol Cottonbrook plays Brooke in the film, and Michael Holmes plays Marsh.
Yes, indeed. A little family affair there.
And can you remember where the film was shot?
Yes,
and
we were
when?
On Tybee Island, in just east of Savannah, Georgia, and Savannah Beach in that area.
Yeah, the weather conditions look very Irish. It's very blustery and overcast for some of the film anyway.
Yeah, as I recall, it was very cool, very cold when we were shooting there. The water was very choppy. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful place. I'd never been to the South before, and it was really very, very lovely, the East Coast there. And I remember the dolphins were swimming around right outside, right off the pier, so you could sort of like hang on the pier and watch the dolphins playing. It was very nice.
And what are your recollections of working on the set? I mean, how long were you there for?
I was there for about a week, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 days even. Not a long time. They brought me in, and I got to hang out a couple extra days because it was more convenient for them to not have to take me to the airport. They could put me up and feed me for another couple days, which was fine with me. After I was cast, I went to Robert Short's studio, which is just in his garage in his house, and they had a whole process for making the casting of my face and my upper body, which was something to endure right there. It's sort of a smothering affair. They cover you with this kind of gelatinous mess and give you straws in your nose and your mouth to breathe through and cover you entirely. And from that, of course, they made the molding for my head and were able, and the upper part of my body, to create the mask that went on to me. A fully automated mask that had movable eyes and jaws. And they were kind of operated by cables that ran down my back, and somebody stood behind me and pulled on the cables to make my jaw move and my eyes move. Meanwhile, I'm kind of inside of this helmet-like thing that was conforming a lot more to my face than a normal, helmet would. And the makeup part started early on in the day. We were going to shoot at night, and put on this sort of threadbare costume that they wanted me to wear. And then they proceeded to rip it and tear it and glue it to my body with super glue. And
super glue?
Super glue, yes.
Health
super
and safety.
Glue and hot glue as well. They had hot glue guns. And they were like just sort of making a mess of it all and gluing it in specific places on my body, ripping holes. And then from those little kind of canvases, they would create these horrible running, oozing, pus-filled sores. And they would they did that painstakingly, I would say, for probably a couple hours doing all that stuff.
Speaking of painstaking, it must have been quite sore getting the makeup off.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of it, and it certainly took its time. Luckily, the part of the face, I didn't have any makeup so much on my face. So that was a little bit.
You had lots of.
I've since had that experience where they glue the prosthetic latex on your face with surgical glues, and that takes forever to take off.
You had lots of little friends though within the makeup, lots of bugs and worms and all sorts.
Well, that's the pièce de résistance, I guess you would say. It was close to shooting, and they would start to coat me with this slime and goo and take me outside. I couldn't sit down, but when they glued the pants, etc., to my body and my shirt, I was not able to actually sit anymore. So I kind of had to stand up and lean against things for a while. And when they finally got around to shooting, which was quite late, I would say close to midnight or even later, it was quite cold. And the wind was blowing, and of course they had other fans, etc., that they were setting up. And they started coating me with this slime and goo and ooze, a lot of different kinds of liquid makeup stuff. And they were gluing, even in the makeup process, they were gluing bugs, dead bugs, and earthworms onto my face with super glue, on the mask and onto my clothing. And then during shooting, they took take after take, and this didn't go right, and the flames didn't look good, and the smoke was in the way, and all these different things were going on. So they, retook it and relit it and did things like that. It took a long time to get the shot. And each time they would just pile more and more ooze on me. At some point, they would just start putting the earthworms all over me, and they would sort of open the mask jaws and throw in a handful of earthworms right before we started to shoot. And they looked like they were kind of crawling out of my face and crawling out of my mouth. And but they were also crawling back into the mask and crawling all over my face and all over my head inside the mask, and I couldn't get to them. So I just sort of had to let them kind of crawl all over me, which was kind of interesting. I would kind of mash them against the inside of the mask when they got too close to my nose, or my mouth itself, just to keep them from crawling. But,
sounds like you had a tough time.
Yeah.
So what was Joe Cardone like to work with, apart from pushing you through the grinder vis-a-vis insects and makeup?
Yeah, Joe is a great guy. Like I said, I'd known him, so we had a nice, easy relationship already, kind of a social relationship. So everything was very, very friendly. He was, of course, very busy. The director on the set, very, very busy, pretty much all the time. So it wasn't like we were hanging out too much at the set. But he was very efficient, very good director. It was my first real experience in a film, so I was very, very happy to have it with him and with Carol.
And are you still in touch with any of the people from the film?
I lost touch with them several years ago. It's been, how long has it been since that film?
Nearly 30 years. Well, it was released in 1982, but it could have been filmed before that.
I think it was probably 81 that we made that film. Yeah, so it's been several years, and I have really been out of touch. Haven't lived in Los Angeles now for about 15 years.
I wonder, were you aware of when Nightmare on Elm Street came out a couple of years after The Slayer, were you aware of the similarities between the two films?
I actually was. We kind of talked about that a little bit. Michael, I was still in good friends with Michael Holmes for several years. And, we did talk about that. Oh, they ripped us off. But, it really, I really enjoyed Nightmare on Elm Street. That was a really good film. I think they had a lot more, it was very much more resourceful, I think, than what we were able to accomplish. And so it was, I really enjoyed it. I think they really took the idea, if that's what they did, to a much more interesting place.
Oh no, I think The Slayer is a fine film. I think they do the dream thing kind of in reverse, where the girl falls asleep and the killer comes into reality, whereas in Nightmare on Elm Street it's all in the dream world. If The Slayer had turned into a franchise like Nightmare on Elm Street, would you have fancied coming back for part 2?
Oh, I would love to have come back for part 2, yeah.
Without the superglue, possibly. Can you remember,
that either.
Did the film get a theatrical release in the United States?
Not that I know about. I know it wasn't in Los Angeles. I would have remembered going to it in the premiere or whatever. I know I did see it on the screen, but I believe it was a cast and crew screening, which are very popular, obviously, in L.A. If you're living there and the filmmakers are there when the film gets ready, they usually have a screening of it for people who made the film. I remember going to that, but I don't recall it actually being in a theater there.
Yeah, because over here, I believe from our research, it went straight to video in the summer of 1982 and ended up as one of the notorious video nasties. I don't know if that scandal made its way over to the news in LA back in the early 80s.
No, it really didn't, and at least not to my awareness. There might have been some people that were aware of it, but no, I found that to be very interesting in researching that that aspect.
Well, a lot of the films that were targeted really would be considered extremely tame now, including The Slayer. So you went on to work on another famous horror film later in the 80s, The Gate.
Yes, The Gate and The Gate 2, both. I had a lot more involvement in those films, working with the director. The director was a good friend of mine as well, and additionally to work, Tibor Takas is his name. And he brought me on to work with the child actors in the film.
Including Stephen Dorff.
Stephen Dorff, yes, and Louis Tripp. And we worked especially with the Canadian actors to erase their Canadian dialect so that they would sound American. I'm not sure why they wanted that. I guess it had to do with marketing, but marketing the film in the States. But that's what they initially hired me for, and the way that he was able to get me there was, and he also needed somebody to play the workman, the I guess you call him a zombie of some sort.
You're the character then who falls forward onto the floor?
Yes.
Oh, right, yes.
The workman.
That is a pretty nifty effect for a low-budget 80s film.
That was a really, really great effects person there, Randy Cook, and Craig Reardon, who actually did the makeup on me, special effects makeup. Randy Cook was in charge overall with the visual effects, and really an excellent guy for the amount of money that we were spending in Canada to make the film in Toronto. He really made that film look good. He's gone on also to do much bigger and better things. He did, I think, the trolls in The Lord of the Rings.
I thought you were going to say Troll, the movie Troll.
The Troll, yes. Troll singular.
And can you tell us what you're up to now?
Now I'm teaching in a high school in Sonoma County in California, and I am teaching drama and film study to high school students, directing student plays and doing all of that. And I also perform music on the side. I'm a musician as well and have a band in the area, so I get my creative yayas out here.
Very good. And are your students aware of films on your resume like The Slayer?
Yes, The Slayer is a tough one because I actually haven't got a copy of it, except that I have a beta copy, an old beta tape of it, but I actually haven't got a VHS or a DVD. I don't even know if it's on DVD.
It's on DVD in the UK and Ireland, but it's not. It's not a particularly good release. It's full screen and it's quite dark.
And I show them The Gate because in my film study class I use it to teach specific kinds of special effects, the forced perspective effects especially, and the claymation effects.
Because the Gate was a sizable enough hit over here. I remember certainly on video it was, and it's certainly very reminiscent of maybe a Joe Dante film.
Yes, Tibor was very influenced by Joe Dante and, well, several filmmakers.
And he went in. He had dabbled in the slasher field as well with the film I, Madman, which he made in 1989. Yeah, that
was a Randy Cook film, by the way, and he was also involved on that. And that was pretty much right after the Gate films.
Carl, thank you very much for agreeing to talk to us today. It's very much appreciated.
It was a pleasure. And anything else you need to know, let me know.
He tried to close the elevator doors and it was out there waiting for him.
Kay, you've got to understand you've had a terrible shock. We all have. But it is dangerous to take it too far. I mean, your dream...
One dream! Only one. The same dream over and over again. It started when we lived in the Sackler
house. That was years ago.
Papa gave me the kitten. I woke up screaming. I remember it, far away coming at me. The sound that it made. It did terrible things. And the more I dreamed it, the more real it became.
Okay, that was Carl Cranes, and many thanks to him again for agreeing to do that interview. I said in the interview that I asked him about the Gate. I said, "Are you the guy who falls forwards?" Which was kind of a very vague remark. There's a scene in the Gate where there's a zombie falls forward, and once he hits the ground, he turns into lots of little goblins, and that's the special effect I was referring to, just to clarify, because it sounds kind of weird. Oh, are you the guy who falls forwards? So there we go.
Well, Erik, I just want to play you a little something because we've not done this yet, but you did, of course, you know, as we know, this is...
As much as I hate to admit it, Erik is right.
True.
So there you go.
Always true. So I can use that in all aspects of my life. Yeah.
Exactly. So we might hold on to that little clip for future references.
We must take some Justin clips out of Superstition.
I know. But it's just
I was just thinking, is there any Joseph or Nathan clips in any slasher movies?
I don't think there's any Nathan.
No.
There's no Joseph in a slasher film either.
Really?
There must be a Joe or no?
Yeah, there must be. Well, if you know what the address is to write in to tell us. So
that email address again is. No, I'm not going to mention it.
the.hysteria.gmail.com.
I know. I'm tired of mentioning it.
Well, I was just going to say, Erik, you might have some more background about it, but Kay, I mean, as you said, I didn't realise the other woman was married to J.S. Cardone, which obviously makes sense, because when I looked at her IMDb output, it was very much the same as his. But Kay...
and the same for Frederick Flynn, who plays Erik. He's in a lot of J.S. Cardone's films as well.
Okay. But Kay she went on to the giddy heights of Stewardess number 2 in The Karate Kid Part 2. And that was their only other credit.
But that got released in the cinemas.
Whoa. Yes. Which one was she in?
Stewardess number Part 2. Probably when Mr. Miyagi and Daniel are on their way to Japan.
Who did she play?
The second stewardess in Karate Kid Part 2.
I watched that the other night. That was her. Wow.
Did you recognise her?
Yes. I was like, who is that woman? She looks familiar.
Ah, well, there you go.
What does Mr. Miyagi do to relax?
Wax on, wax off?
Wax off. Sorry.
Okay. Well, that's, thank you. So
I'm here all week, just like Justin.
Yes, we're in residence. So, Erik, have you got any more? Tippish?
Joseph was mentioning that was released on a double bill VHS with Fred Olen Ray's Scalps in the US. And it was actually shorn of 6 minutes of footage. None of the gore was taken out. It was just all incidental stuff, plot lines, dialogue. That was so that it would fit on a cassette with another film. And Scalps was similarly trimmed as well, so the two films would fit on one cassette.
Well, if they wanted to excise some footage, they should have just cut Scalps altogether. The whole movie.
I've never seen Scalps. Is it bad?
It's terrible.
Yeah. Have you not seen
Fred Olen Ray instills fear in me anytime I see his name on a video.
But didn't you? That was the from the starting bit where it's got like she's nuts. That's from Scalps.
Which bit?
The bit at the beginning, with the with little clips of dialogue with the music, where she goes, "She's nuts," and that's so. I'm sure you'd love it, Erik.
Well, maybe I'll hunt down.
Here we are again talking about nuts.
When aren't we? So Erik, have you got any other little tips?
Just to let people know that if they are looking for an uncut version, it has been released uncut on DVD in the UK by a company called Cornerstone Media, who are just Vipco, the old reliable. Remember Vipco, Justin? It's just them in disguise. It's the same poor quality full screen print, but at least this time it's uncut, I suppose. That was released in 2000.
They're wearing a Slayer mask.
Yes.
Well, Vipco is kind of...
And the film is also known as Nightmare Island. Now, I couldn't find any information of if it was ever released as Nightmare Island anywhere or if that was a pre-production title, but as far as I know, everywhere it was released as The Slayer.
Do we know if it was made in 1980 or 81?
Well, Carl said there he thinks it was made around 1981.
Okay, because I found some stuff from Variety saying that the film was due to be lensed in spring of 80. But of course, it may well have been.
Well, I mean,
delayed.
it's 30 years ago, so maybe he might have got it slightly wrong.
No, he may well have probably got it right. But it was it said that it was due to be lensed in the spring of 80. But of course, it may have been referring to spring of the following year. I don't know because it certainly doesn't look like summer, does it?
No.
Well, being filmed.
It looks very blustery, but in some scenes it is quite sunny. Like they are on the beach in one scene. And it looks kind of blue, but like when they land the plane, I was like, "Oh, this was filmed in Ireland."
Yeah, he says, "I thought this would be sunny. It's not really sunny out here. It's really windy and kind of."
I mean, the film. The only other few things because it's actually quite difficult to find any information about this film. It did actually get a theatrical release in the States. I think in October, ahead of Halloween in 1982. How much a release, I don't know, but it did get a release. And the information I can find is it didn't do very well, particularly at all. It's Variety sort of used things like tepid and basically saying that it didn't exactly set the world on fire. And again, it's one of these Johnny-come-latelys to the slasher movie boom. By October 1982, it was pretty much over. There were films, the big franchises went through to 84 and beyond, but the new slasher movies, post Summer 81, even in Summer 81, they weren't doing that well. So we forget also, as you look back and think the golden age of slasher movie, but the slasher movies that are making loads of money were the ones in about 1980, and then you had the big boom in 81. We had the big movers and shakers like Friday the 13th Part 2 and Halloween 2 made quite a lot of money. But a lot of the films like The Burning and other films that came out in 81, and Terror Train although that came in 80, is a good example of films that didn't exactly set the world alight. So The Slayer kind of missed the boat, basically, which is a shame, but it did get a cinema release in the States, but it's telling that it didn't get a cinema release in the UK. I mean, even a film like Island of Blood got a cinema release in the UK. So
that's weird that you mentioned that. I was going to say that The Slayer kind of reminds me of Island of Blood with the island, and there's a part in The Slayer where the clock it does the doom doom and has that whole like island thing atmosphere. I was like, hey, that reminds me of Island of Blood. But anyway.
Well, interestingly, just the thing that I saw from Variety. It said it was due to set roll. It says this spring, and it's a 1980 version. It's on Catalina Island. Isn't that off Los Angeles, or isn't that off the West Coast?
That is.
Is Catalina? Is that off San Francisco?
I believe so, because there is a porn star named Catalina Cruz who named her name after that.
Yeah, it's only
how would you know that?
Yes, how would you know that, Joseph?
I'm a guy. I'm supposed to know that.
Okay, but where is Georgia? This is
Georgia is where it was filmed. Yeah.
Yeah, where is Georgia on the? It's on the West Coast, East Coast. I should know.
East Coast is right below us. I'm like we actually live like 5
We're
minutes
right on the line.
So
we're on the line.
So what that hints at is the fact is if it was due to be shooting on Catalina.
Have you never seen a map, Justin?
Yes, but I only look at maps of anything of any relevance, which is like Europe. But no, Catalina Island is obviously if it's due to roll there, it sounds like it was delayed, and so it should have shot in the spring of 80, but maybe it got moved. The location got moved to Georgia in 1981, which obviously makes perfect sense. It also, the other reason I think the film didn't do particularly well was the distributor at the time went out of business, apparently, again, according to Variety. I think it says the defunct International Picture Show distributor of The Slayer, basically, as it says, went defunct. So obviously if you've got a film release and you've gone bankrupt, then it's probably not a good sign, and it's certainly probably the worst case scenario for someone releasing a film, which again may sort of show why the film didn't do particularly well. But apparently it did get a release on video in the US before it went on the dub bill with Scalps, which I don't have the details here, but and obviously as Erik said, it got like a release in this country, and it became one of the infamous video nasties, which is why probably it has a bit of a following now. And just to say, I was looking for more information. There's very little information that exists about this film, apart from obviously it was fantastic. We got Carl Cranes to talk about it, and also it'd be great when we get some more information on it. But the films, if you're interested in the video nasty period, then there's 3 books which I'd recommend. One is See No Evil, which is Banned Films and Video Controversy by David Correx and David Slater, which goes into quite a lot of detail about the Slayer. Then there's also Shock Horror, which is astounding artwork from the video nasty era, which is Francis Brewster, Harvey Benson, and Mark Morris, which I've got here. And The Best of the Lot, which is a book that you may have difficulty finding. Obviously, these are all British books. Is Seduction of the Gullible: The Curious History of the British Video Nasties Phenomenon by John Martin.
Not the singer.
Not the singer, no. But he doesn't appear to do very much in the moment. But it's a great overview of the video.
I have that book as well. Yeah.
Justin, I was going to say, I know it's a little old. I mean, I know you wrote it like 10 or 15 years ago, but the little excerpt on the Video Nasties on your website where you gave your opinion, I thought that was a very well written piece.
Well, thank you. I mean, I haven't been back. I keep on thinking to go back to it because actually, when I look at the site, people looking at it, that gets more hits than practically anything else on my site, and I haven't updated that for over a decade now, and so I should really go back to it. But I kind of, even if it's just to put it's a little time capsule of this is where we were or where we are, where we were back in 1999 or whenever it was written. So, but
can I just recommend, Justin, as well, a DVD. Called Video Nasties, The Definitive Guide. It's a 3 DVD set. The first disc is a documentary about the Video Nasties scandal, focusing more on the politics of it rather than the films themselves. Then disc 2 and disc 3 are trailers for each film, along with a little spiel by some kind of genre journalist or something before them. And it's absolutely really terrific. It's on Nucleus Films, and it came out in 2009, I think. Just checking the sleeve here. And it's Region 0 as well, which means that our friends in the States can purchase it if they so desire. But it's a really terrific box set, I have to say.
It's fantastic. It's definitely worth getting if you've not seen it and you've got any interest at all in the Video Nasty debacle. Which
I'll have to pull my Baby Jesus mode and get it somehow.
Okay, well, I'm sure you can get it. You can get it from Amazon or any good online stores, Joseph. So, but yes, I mean, I don't know. Is there anything left to say about the Slayer, Erik?
I don't think so, no, because as you said, it's a difficult film to track down any information about. I mean, it's one that would have probably disappeared into obscurity completely if it hadn't been for its inclusion on the Video Nasties list. I mean, that's the only reason it came to my attention back in 1992. I'm sure I probably wouldn't have never have seen it had it not been. I mean, Vipco were this company that released all these films originally in the 80s. They were all banned. Then they reissued them in the early 90s, usually in a cut form. Films like Zombie Flesh Eaters and Driller Killer. So I mean, there was quite a high profile reissue for them in the early 90s. I remember there was lots of reviews and advertisements for them in Darkside magazine, which was a UK equivalent of Fangoria. But yeah, I mean, it's a film that has sort of disappeared completely. I mean, some of the actors involved have gone on to better things. Alan McRae, who played David in it, he's the one who gets decapitated by the trapdoor. I mean, he's gone on to have a really healthy acting career, not necessarily in genre-related material, but he certainly moved on to bigger things. But most of the people were very hard to track down. Carl Cranes was the only one I managed to get in touch with about it.
I mean, it'd be great to talk to J.S. Cardone about it, but I mean, it's quite a difficult name to track down, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Excellent.
Well, you said it was filmed in Georgia, right?
It was Tybee Islands. I think the notes I've got. It was filmed in two places, which I think is. I've got the notes here somewhere that says, where are we? Off the IMDb, which is Savannah, Georgia, and Tybee Island, Georgia.
I wonder. I mean, I've been through Savannah before. It's about 3 hours from here. I'd kind of actually like to see if I could find some of the locations.
That'd be great. Yeah, you could do a
pictures or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one of the really fun things about going on YouTube is that some people have put up videos of famous horror locations, like from Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th Part 2. It's really interesting to see what they look like now. I mean, that town they use at the start of Friday the 13th is completely unchanged.
Really?
Unchanged completely. Yeah, really, really good.
Because when I was about 10 years ago, I was in where was it, in down near Philadelphia in New Jersey, and there was a town called Voorhees there, and we went to the Voorhees liquor store. I remember that. But anyway, that's just by the by.
Has anyone ever been to Intercourse, Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Have you?
I had to go there once.
Did you laugh?
I have never been. I've been to Pennsylvania, but never Intercourse. Never.
It's a very, very small town, and they're very proud of their name because there's like the Intercourse Pharmacy, and there's like the Intercourse Inn. I mean, there's a lot of Intercourse
Inn.
stores.
That's kind of Intercourse Inn.
It's kind of a double entendre there.
Yeah, there we go.
I mean, talking about not exactly double entendres, but in Bristol there was until the 19th century there was a lane called Grope Cunt Lane.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It was actually called Grope Cunt Lane, and they changed it to
obviously they had to change it.
But there was, and there still is, I think, a petition to try and get it changed back. So that was the original name.
Yeah, by teenage boys who think it's funny.
Well, I think it may have been. It was back from medieval times, and it was where the kind of red light district, basically, and that's how it became known. But apparently, all across the UK, there's loads of places, and grope cunt is quite a well-known term in certain towns, probably still in various.
Well, there's one place called Daddy Hole Road or Daddy Hole Lane or something in some place.
Justin,
famously appears on my Facebook feed quite a lot.
Justin, do you ever drive by this road and say, "I want to grope your pretty pink cunt"?
No, is that a Black Christmas thing? Well, I wouldn't be saying that anyway for a number of reasons. But there's also somebody at work wrote to me from somewhere called Wilsford's Cum Lake, which is spelt Cumlake, which I thought was. They didn't see the funny side of it, which is a bit unfortunate. But anyway, so there's lots of interesting places. So if you live in a funny-sounding place... then
boy, how did we get off on that tangent?
Absolutely.
It was Voorhees. Started, yeah. So it did start on a slasher note. It wasn't a complete tangent.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure there's lots of... I mean, maybe let's have a think about those for next time. I'm sure there's some more. So... excellent. Okay, well, should we wrap it up there, guys? Because I think this may be the longest podcast we've actually done.
Wow.
So where we were worried we wouldn't get enough on the Slayer, in fact, we just babbled on for literally hours and hours.
Grope cunt threw it over the 2-hour mark.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I do apologise. I wouldn't use the C word normally, but obviously I'm using it in a historical context, so please forgive me. Okay, well, just to say that we've got plenty coming. Well, not literally, but we've got plenty to come, and we've got lots of interviews and stuff like that. We're going to be talking about how we're going to figure things out, because obviously we're coming to summer months and holidays and stuff like that. But the Hysteria will continue. Make no mistake about that. We will be back. But we shall see. We're going to be talking about what we're going to be doing. But in the meantime... what we'll do is we shall fade out now to some more music from The Slayer.